What's going on, everybody? It's the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, as always, Adam Scher at Ship My Money DFS. Hit me up at Laffy_D on the Twitter. We got 3 games to talk about today. A brief respite from these huge slates that we've had and are going to have tomorrow. 13 games, Friday, 11 games. And, well, Adam, I just ate a huge bowl of pasta before we started, like a monster bowl of pasta. And I put some like crushed red peppers on it. And I just coughed before the show. And I'm pretty sure one of those red peppers just went up into my nose. And
that always
it's
feels
painful.
Good.
Yeah, that hurts. What's up?
How's it going? I think I'm doing a little better than you are right now. It sounds like.
I was trying so hard not to sneeze or make a face during that, but we're good. We're professionals here. Anyway, we're happy to have you guys with us. We got, again, 3 games. Completely decimated skeleton crew of a Philadelphia team. And then a couple other spots, Atlanta getting 8 points on the road, Portland Clippers, and of course, Philly facing Milwaukee. Initial thoughts, as always, man. Boom, stars, scrubs, balanced. Any good value on such an abbreviated slate?
Values at the moment, value is pretty bad. Like there's certainly some cheap guys that look okay for their, for their salaries, but it's guys like George Hill, Anthony Simons, where it's like, okay, they project for 19 or 20 fantasy points at 3,800, but it's pretty difficult for them to like really give you a good game. So it's stuff like it's spots like that where like there are some decent cheap guys to get to, but there's not the type of value where you feel really good about it. You basically, as far as that goes, you have Bobby Portis at 5,400 on DraftKings. You have Korkmaz at 4,900. To a lesser extent, you have Niang at 4,700. That's kind of about it. I mean, Andre Drummond, I guess, counts as a value still at 7,700. But as far as cheap guys go, it's tough. So it makes this slate, I think, really interesting to talk about. And Josh and I managed to easily spend an hour on it this morning because there are pay-up options. And so it just from a strategy standpoint becomes pretty interesting.
Well, hey, if you haven't done so yet, hit that thumbs up for us before we dive into all of these games, all 3 of these games, and subscribe to the channel. We're over 100 likes already. If you're coming in after the previous show or you're just jumping in right now, welcome. Thank you for getting us to 65,000 subs as well. But you know the drill here, right? We got to combat the YouTube overlords. I don't just say this as a gimmick or a shtick. I'm serious. There's an algorithm here. There's priority status. We don't have that, but we're trying. And we can do that with your help. It only takes a second. Really, it takes like 1 second to do so. And greatly appreciated for all you guys that every single day support this channel, because without you, we're not doing this. We're bagging groceries. That's not true. We're not Kurt Warner, but we're doing a lot better with all of your support every day, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So appreciate you. All right, let's go. Milwaukee, Philadelphia. Dive straight into this one, Adam. Milwaukee Bucks on the road in Philly, 6.5 point favorites, 216 total. Now, a couple things I want to point out here just from a matchup standpoint, and then you can riff after that. The 76ers are playing their second of a back-to-back. They've now played 2 back-to-backs in the last 5 days, right? The 3rd and the 4th, the 6th and the 8th. So this is going to be the 8th and then tonight. So this will be their, 5th game in 6 days, 5th game in 7 days. They're playing a lot of basketball lately. They're without Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons still obviously isn't there. He's doing his own thing. And then Tobias Harris is out. Matisse Thybulle, a quality defender, also sidelined. They're ravaged right now.
Yeah, this team really scares me tonight because it's a situation where I think it's pretty difficult not to be getting to a lot of Philadelphia. Also, you have Seth Curry questionable here. You already have, all those other guys out, but Curry also questionable. So it's difficult not to be getting to a lot of these guys on a 3-game slate when they're shorthanded. Yesterday, they basically ran a 7-man rotation. Paul Reed played about 5 minutes as the 8th guy. So you had insane minutes yesterday. So clearly, if you just like look at the Sixers and say, oh, this is a really scary spot because they played huge minutes. It's a back-to-back. Like you said, they have played a ton of games recently. The risk to doing that is really, really high because there's a pretty good chance that these guys come out here and play huge minutes again tonight. The flip side to that, though, is what if they do run a deeper rotation? What if Doc Rivers just kind of says like, okay, we tried to get that win last night. We didn't get it. We're going to, shave minutes off of these guys. They have a couple of G Leaguers up. I believe I need to double check that, but I know they brought them up the other day. And we're just going to kind of pull back a little bit here. it has the potential to burn you. So it's kind of scary, but it's also, I just don't really see a way around getting to these Sixers.
Same with last night. And somebody like Andre Drummond, I mean, my God, his price has come up and he's still the highest owned player. He's still getting the highest boom rating in our boom bust tool, all of that. But yeah, I see what you're saying though. So let me ask you this then. And you kind of touched on it. 8-man rotation yesterday. All right. And Paul Reed played what, only like 5 minutes in that game?
Yeah.
So essentially a 7-man rotation. You got 41 from Curry. He's questionable. I mean, God, if he's out after playing 41 minutes, that's even more of an issue. Tyrese Maxey played almost 40. Drummond played 38, almost 40. Korkmaz played 40. Danny Green played 30. And then off the bench, you had Shake with 22, Niang with 25. This is just one of those spots where if Doc goes back to an 8-man, really a 7-man rotation in the second of a back-to-back, which I don't think he will, but I think it could still be condensed. It should still be condensed. How do you get away from that?
Yeah, and somebody in chat said that Rivers said he's playing 10 guys today. I haven't seen that quote. I believe it.
Yeah, neither did I.
But I mean, they even so, like if they play 10 guys, unless they really just run, unless they just don't even try in this game, even if they run a 10-man rotation, the main Sixers are going to look good here, because what a 10-man rotation would mean is that Tyrese Maxey goes from 40 minutes to 34 or 35. He's still going to look fine at 6,200. If Seth Curry is in, he goes from 40 minutes to 33 or 34. He'd still look okay. Same goes for Korkmaz. You would potentially be getting more minutes in that case for Shake Milton, maybe, and Niang. Like, it's still, even if you assume that like Jaden Springer and Aaron Henry or Bassey or whoever, I think that's really the only other options, play some minutes, unless they just give up this game, it's hard to think that the main guys don't play enough minutes to still be strong plays at their salary.
Right. Because even if he plays 10, how many minutes do you really anticipate those back of the bench guys getting anyway?
Right. Exactly. It's like you have to keep in mind that when coaches say stuff like that, they're not speaking from a DFS standpoint. And we've seen it recently.
Right.
Like, for example, we had Steven Silas come out the other day and say, we're going to play the young guys a bunch of minutes. We might run a 12-man rotation. And normally I kind of ignore that kind of stuff. I actually, changed my projections because of it. And then like Jayshawn Tate plays like 20 minutes in the first half. You had it last night where James Borrego said Mason Plumlee's still the starting center, but Nick Richards is going to play I don't remember exactly how he worded, but he said a lot of minutes. Nick Richards plays like 16 minutes. When these coaches say stuff, a lot of times it's in the context of this guy normally plays 0 minutes, so he's going to play 8, and that's meaningful. Whereas for us, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. He played 8 yesterday, and one guy played 5 minutes. So right. It's hard to say. I was going to start with the Bucks, but we're already in the thick of it with the Sixers. Let's run through this. So I know Maxey was the furthest thing from efficient yesterday, Adam, but this speaks to exactly what you and I always talk about. It's the same thing in football when it comes to volume, right? Like a Devontae Booker with Barkley. I don't care if he's not efficient. He guys get 25 looks every game. Give me some Devontae Booker, right? With Tyrese Maxey, he was not efficient. He shot 6 for 19. I mean, dreadful shooting, but he played almost 40 minutes. He averaged north of a fantasy point per minute and was just out on the floor long enough to collect those much needed rebounds and assists and stocks and stuff, along with 16 points. So I think we can attribute that to a lot of these starters today. Start wherever you'd like.
Yeah. So, and I think one thing that makes one way you can approach this is to assume that if it's close, they probably err on the side of younger guys getting more minutes. Like if Seth Curry plays, they probably would still rather him not play a ton of minutes here. Danny Green, I don't think he played 30 yesterday. I don't think he's suddenly going to go play 36 today. But someone like Shake Milton, who only played 22 minutes yesterday, played really poorly. If he's playing well, you could see a path to more minutes anyway. But it's not like it would be surprising if you just intentionally see them say, all right, Curry plays 32 today. We're going to give those 8 to Milton, and now Milton's at 30 minutes as well. Tyrese Maxey, someone I'm not particularly concerned about his minutes. I think they'll just let him go out there and play. So I do kind of try and err on the side of like, I think Seth Curry looks good. I think Danny Green looks fine at his salary, but I don't like those guys quite as much as I like the Maxey, Korkmaz. Milton's priced up a bit, so he's still risky, but I could see him getting more minutes here as well.
Who would you say your favorite option is outside of Drummond?
Korkmaz, because he's been a fantasy point per minute guy without Embiid and Harris this year. He's a fantasy point per minute guy without them last year. He's a good shooter. His assist percentage is up, and he's relatively inexpensive. I hesitated because it was between him and Maxey, but I think the $1,300 price tag or $1,300 price difference points me toward Korkmaz.
It's honestly a little surprising that he's only 4,900 coming off a game where he played, that many minutes. But maybe the salaries came out prior to the game being over. I think with Maxey too, it's like he's not a great shooter, Adam. We know that, but he's going to have opportunities. Did you by any chance, and I can do this because I meant to earlier and I just forgot. Do you by any chance see his potential assist from yesterday?
For who?
For Maxey?
For Maxey? No, I haven't.
Okay. I was curious to see if maybe he just had a ton of opportunities that were, overshadowed by the fact that this team couldn't hit shots late in the game.
I mean, I'll have it in a second.
I got it. I'm pulling it up.
13 potential assists in his 39 minutes.
13 and 39. All right, that's not bad. Seth Curry had 10. It's kind of significant.
Yeah, but also 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Seth Curry touching the ball enough to get 10 potential assists is significant. But obviously, yes, it's a team that's just completely beleaguered right now.
Korkmaz is really the one that stands out, and he had 9 potential assists yesterday, and it's reflected in his numbers this year too. The assist percentage being up, that's something that does, and I mentioned it a second ago. But Korkmaz, when I get a lot of him, I'm always nervous because typically in the past he's just been a guy that needs to make a bunch of threes, and if he doesn't, you're really in trouble. But he has been doing more as far as getting assists, and also his usage is up this year.
It's surprising that Drummond only had 3 potential assists. If you told me he played 30 minutes, I'd have been like, okay, he saw between 8 and 10 potential assists.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
All right. Anybody else for the Sixers? There's so much talk about Paul Reed right now in chat, but I'll let you hit on that if you want.
I mean, Paul Reed in tournaments, I think, is okay at 3,300. Like I would think people are going to shy away from him today. He was relatively popular yesterday because he had started 2 games ago. Seeing the 5 minutes, it tells you that there is no floor there. But if they do run a deeper rotation today, Paul Reed should see more minutes. I would think he at least gets the backup center minutes. Like if Drummond plays, let's say 34 minutes, it seems like Reed should get 14 unless they really are just trying to kill these guys and run a 7-man rotation again. So on a slate that's really starved for value, I don't mind getting to some Paul Reed. He is projected for 10% ownership, which doesn't feel great, but I don't have any level of confidence in him, but he is 3,300. He does have a path to minutes. He is the 8th guy in this rotation, possibly 7th if Curry is out. So yeah, it's don't expect a lot, but he does at least have a path to playing time. And I guess, we do have to talk about Drummond at least for a minute. I kind of skipped over.
Yeah, hold on one second. If Seth Curry's out, right, you have Maxey starting, you have Green and Korkmaz starting. They went, outrageously small yesterday, Adam, right? In that starting lineup, really quite small with 4 players that can play the guard position in the starting lineup surrounded by Drummond. Who do you think would slot in as a starter? It wouldn't be hard to potentially put Reed back in the starting lineup if Seth Curry sits.
I think they would go Milton, but
so?
They could go Reed against Giannis and Portis.
Yeah, I don't know. Shake, Milton, Green, Korkmaz, Drummond. I guess it's possible.
Yeah, it's either Milton or Reed, I think.
Or Reed. I think you want Niang off the bench, but
right.
All right, sorry. Go ahead on Drummond.
Oh, so it's just more of the same. He's at a price point now at 7,700 on DraftKings and 7,200 on FanDuel, where it's at least like possible for him to fail. Yesterday, at his price, it was outside of injury, it was essentially impossible for him to actually disappoint. Now there's at least guys in his price range that can score 50 fantasy points and can beat him, but he still just looks great to me. I don't think it's a situation where you should be scared to roster him at 7,700 because you have to keep in mind, it's a big price jump, but he was so underpriced before. He's still underpriced now. You're still not going to find guys in that price range that project for around 45 points. Even if he plays 33 or 34 minutes instead of 38 here, he's going to look like a good option. So I said to you before the show, that even at this price range, I was still just getting him a massive amount in my tournament lineups.
For sure. Joseph says Reed is a backup center, so he wouldn't start. No, that's not true at all. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of teams that have starting power forwards that stagger with the centers and get backup center minutes anyway. Backups, yeah, no, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, he started
says,
2 games ago.
What's up?
He started 2 games ago.
Right. Well, he wasn't the backup center there, but right.
Oh, I thought he was just saying what Reed is as a player, like that he wouldn't play the 4.
I thought, well, he's 6'9". It's not like he's a 7'1" big.
Yeah.
I thought he was saying he wouldn't start because he has to get the backup center minutes, which.
Oh, I mean, he played 5 minutes yesterday, so he clearly doesn't have to get the backup center minutes.
No, but even if he does, he can still start.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly.
You just stagger him. Yeah. Plus, there aren't going to be a lot of backup center minutes tonight. Drummond's probably still going to play at least 35 minutes.
I would think so, yeah.
Aiden said, why wouldn't you play? Hold on, I'm sorry. Why wouldn't you play Drummond another 35 minutes? He's not going to be the starter for 82 games. Like he's the guy's going to be playing 14 minutes a game once Embiid comes back. Give him 35 plus. Who cares? No?
I have no issue with that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's not like he hasn't done it before. Aiden says, would you be more inclined, I'll throw this to you, Adam, would you be more inclined to play 100% Drummond or 0% in single entry tournaments?
Play Drummond.
Yeah, at this point, just get the fella in your lineups. All right.
So someone had mentioned that Korkmaz, like his actual assist numbers over the last couple of games, said he's scoring dependent. He has a 16.6% assist percentage for the season. Without Harris or Embiid on the floor, it's up closer to 20%. So yeah, I mean, you can look at what he did yesterday, but the numbers back up that his assist opportunities are up.
Yeah, and he's also more scoring dependent when he's out there with other guys that handle the ball a ton and are just ball dominant guy. This is when you take Harrison and Embiid off the floor, Furkan Korkmaz has the highest assist percentage on the team outside of Shake Milton at 22.9%. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Maxi's at 22.1.
Maxi had 101. Maxi had 101 touches yesterday. I feel good about that. Yeah. And you're right. You're right. Drummond, I don't know. Oh yeah. Tokyo Swan. Drummond's not that old. No, he's 28. You're not worried about. No. All right. Talk to me about the Milwaukee Bucks. You've got no Middleton still. Brook Lopez was ruled out again. By the way, Seth Curry is now a game time decision. So we'll pay attention to that news as it rolls in. And if it's not on this show, well, coming up after us is the Live Before Lock show. You've got Eric Lindquist, Greg Ehrenberg. So they'll take you all the way up till 7 with the post lock show as well for Jock Market. Stick around for that. 7:30, and that'll go till 8. But anyway, what are you doing now that was still Middleton and Lopez out, starting with Giannis tonight?
So Giannis is the top projected player on the slate. I don't think that's really in question. The only thing that makes it difficult is figuring out A, what value to use to get him in, and B, with this being a shorter slate where there is limited value, you have to keep in mind that not only do you kind of need to make some questionable plays to get to Giannis, but you're going to be making the same kind of questionable plays as everyone else who's trying to roster Giannis. So it potentially makes it kind of difficult to create good but contrarian lineups that have Giannis, since it's going to force you in one direction. But all of that said, he's still someone I want to get to. We have him projected for 38% ownership right now. That's about where I got to in the crunch I ran before the show. So I think the field, pretty much has it right here. Normally on a 3-game slate, you would see a little bit more ownership there, but right now, at least, the value is pretty hard to come by. So I think Giannis is a really good play. I think he's also a little bit better on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, because on DraftKings, you get a bigger price difference between Giannis and Paul George. And Giannis is the preferred option, but the savings to Paul George can make a pretty big difference on DraftKings. They're closer in price on FanDuel. So it's just going to mean on FanDuel, more of that Paul George ends up being Giannis.
Did Josh say, someone said Josh said that Jokic wouldn't get suspended? Did he say that on the strategy show?
Josh said he didn't think he would.
I mean, I think it's almost a certainty that he gets suspended.
I think it's 1 game max.
He hit him from behind, kind of from the side, but
he got, I don't know. Yeah, he reacted to just getting cheap shotted by a Morris brother.
Yeah, he lit his ass up too.
Yeah. Have you seen Marcus and Jokic's brothers going back and forth on Twitter now?
Yeah, I heard, who was telling me this? Was it you? Someone was telling me that like one of them is just titled Jokic's brother or something.
Yeah,
on
the
Twitter.
Twitter account is Jokic Brothers
Yeah.
with no picture.
Oh, it was Ben that told me that. Well, I knew about those brothers because they were at games and like they almost got into a fight with somebody. The Serbians are no joke, man. Like, they said it was Jimmy Butler trying to go after somebody else yesterday, but Jimmy Butler was saying like, let's go, as he walked backwards, briskly.
With 100 people in between them.
Yes, of course. Dude, Jokic is I'm telling you, man, he might not look toned, but he sent Markieff Morris, and Markieff isn't a tiny guy. He sent him flying 15 feet.
I was thinking about that. Like Markieff Morris is what, like 6'10" or 6'11" or something? And just got
he's a center. He's a backup center on most teams.
Yeah, and he just got like launched across the floor.
It's crazy. Yeah, it was. I think he definitely gets suspended, though. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's a like. What'd you say?
What would you put the odds?
50-50, but I think that it's unlikely it ends up being for more than like a game.
Okay.
I just think the reputation, like Jokic's reputation combined with Morris's reputation, combined with the fact that Morris instigated it, like it's not really Jokic's fault that he just came in, cheap shotted him, and then turned around and tried to walk away. Yeah,
because Morris got ejected on an F2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll see. I think there's just so many people that get upset about this stuff that what happens is there's pressure from the league. Cheap shots, Stretcher came out, he was down forever. A lot of times it's just optics more than anything else, but whatever. Thanks for getting us to 300 likes, guys. Appreciate that. What else are you doing?
Somebody said blindside tackle will send most people flying. Go blindside tackle a 6'11" guy and see how far he goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Markieff is big. It wasn't really a tackle either. It was
right. Yeah. He just threw his shoulder into him
and threw him.
Flying. Yeah.
He put a dent in the hardwood for sure. What else are you doing with the Bucks?
So you have Bobby Portis, I think one of the better value options. He started against Washington last game, played 30 minutes. That was the most we'd seen him play this season. We'd seen the minutes, slowly creeping up, and then he rejoined the starting lineup. So I'm expecting 30 or more tonight. He's averaged 1.07 DraftKings points per minute alongside Giannis since the start of last season. You still don't have Middleton, so he should produce at a pretty high rate. He's still cheap. He looks like a strong value. Drew Holiday started and played 30 minutes last game. 6,400 for him. Not the safest play because he is still coming back from injury. We don't know exactly what to expect from him, but a pretty reasonable price tag there. And then if he stays in the starting lineup, George Hill did still play about 32 minutes last game, even with Holiday back. He's not someone that produces at a high level, but again, with value just being what it is on this slate, having potentially 30 minutes at 3,600 is not a bad spot to go to.
Yeah. Morris is 250 pounds. So pretty big fella. Got chat riled up. Priorities from this game on both sides. I know there's a laundry list, but go for it.
Giannis, Portis, and the Sixers. But within the Sixers, Drummond is number 1. I think Korkmaz 2, Maxey 3. If Curry's out, Milton becomes ahead of Maxey and probably Korkmaz. If Curry's in, I think Curry and Milton are like 4 and 5. Niang 6 probably because the ceiling's higher, and then Reed.
Okay. Yeah. One thing I like to ask you for each game is if we're on a short slate, just because sometimes you're trying to find those hidden gems. Are there any guys I guess it would be Reed, right? Low probability plays at low ownership on a short slate for this game. Is it mostly just Reed, or is there anyone from the Bucks that could do it too?
It's Reed. The problem with the Bucks is, as they're getting healthier, you're getting minutes cut for guys like Wara, but also like Semi Ojeleye was the guy that Josh and I talked about a little bit this morning, where he's, at least last game, he was ahead of Thanasis in the rotation. He played like 18 minutes. The problem with Ojeleye is he doesn't produce at a high rate. So Ojeleye can play 22, 23 minutes when we're only expecting 18, and it's not going to matter because he doesn't do anything. So someone like Paul Reed, he's at least a good fantasy producer when he's on the floor. If he, for one reason or another, plays an extra, few minutes more than we think he's going to, he's capable of helping you win a tournament. Whereas Ojeleye would really need to play like 30 minutes to be somebody you consider.
All right, Atlanta, Utah. Before we do that, Jock Market, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. If you haven't downloaded the app yet, go over there, run to the App Store, Google Play Store, wherever it is. They've turned fantasy sports into a stock exchange. You might ask, what does that mean? I'll tell you. It's a place where you can make money down to the hour, down to the second, as a matter of fact. All you do, it's a very simple concept. You buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money. And if you use the promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, get up to a $50 deposit bonus on your first deposit. Download the app in the App Store, Google Play Store, wherever it is you go. And you got markets for football, basketball, hockey, PGA, NBA, everything. So this is all well and good, right? But what makes it a fascinating app to play on and to win money on and to actually use the strategy that, we talk about on these shows and the tools that we have over at Awesemo is the fact that you can use the pregame IPO to pick up shares of your favorite players. So guys, earlier in the day that you're high on during this IPO period, pick them up. And then throughout the day, as they gain steam or during the game, you can sell them, you can buy more, you can hold them. And that's really how you're going to make money doing this, is by being able to, have a good read on where this slate is going to go and where players are going to go. It's a really cool feature, and you're not going to find that on any other app, on any other fantasy sports site. So all of that is great. It's also great that if you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo, right? You get up to $50 bonus, but the first market guarantee at Jock Market means that if the new user doesn't profit on their first cash market, then they're refunded up to $100. So check it all out. And we have free every day of the week Jock Market IPO projections to help you beat the market before it gets hot over at awesemo.com. And Eric and Greg coming up after Live Before Lock with a 30-minute Jock Market segment to help you guys get acclimated with this and make the best plays for tonight. Download the app, Jock Market, JOCKMKT. All right, let's talk Atlanta and Utah. 222.5 total. Atlanta getting 8 points. I told you yesterday, Adam, they're just bored. That's why they're losing all these games. That's the narrative here. But they're just, they don't look very good right now. Only 3 games, though. Tough matchup against Utah. Where do you stand on Trae Young?
Not that interested at 9,400. It's a tough matchup against Utah, but also he's not been great this year. Like, he still gives you a high ceiling for sure. He's still really, really talented and all of that. 1.26 DraftKings points per minute, probably playing around 36 minutes if this game's close. But with value being hard to come by tonight, it's not a spot that I think I'm going to be that likely to get a lot of. He's projected for 17% ownership, so it's not like you're getting a really low one player here or anything either. So certainly not going to talk anyone off of Trae Young, but I personally don't see myself getting too much of it.
All right, so pulling up ownership, I just want to see if we have an update here. Usually we get one right around this time. All right, still waiting. Atlanta ownership, though, is at, for a 3-game slate, there's not a lot going. Around 19, 20% to Collins, 17 to Trae Young, Gallinari, Clint Capella in the low double digits. All of these guys, I'd say, in comparison to the rest of the slate, are just like middling in terms of ownership.
Yeah, and this is a team that you could see that change a lot. We're waiting on quite a bit of news here. Bogdanovich is questionable.
Yeah, and
DeAndre Hunter is questionable. If one or both of those guys are ruled out, it opens up some value because it gives more minutes to guys like Reddish, Herter, Gallinari. But assuming those guys are in, which is what the ownership projections are doing right now, then it's a spot where there's some decent pricing, but it's also a really, really tough matchup at Utah.
So, all right. Yeah, we're waiting on Bogdanovich, obviously, and DeAndre Hunter, two, like you said, big pieces of news. Assuming both of them are in, right? Are there any priorities whatsoever or any good tournament spots that you say, similarly priced to this guy, maybe he makes a lot of sense in the event that he's going to come in at a fraction of the ownership?
I don't see a ton here. I think Cam Reddish, Gallinari, just because they're so cheap, you can kind of throw darts at them. But Gallo's getting 10% ownership. It's not like he's really sneaky. Reddish at 5%. I think there's no real reason for one of those guys to be twice as owned as the other one. Same goes for Herter, but there's nothing that makes me really confident in them. The one spot from Atlanta that I think is interesting or most interesting, I guess, is Capella, who was playing a lot of minutes prior to his last 2 games. Then you got a small closing lineup against Frank Kaminsky in the Phoenix front court. You got a blowout yesterday, probably was going to be a small closing lineup anyway. I think it's likely that you see Capella get back to 34, 35 minutes here against Gobert and a big Utah front court. The issue is that you have Andre Drummond on this slate, and I don't think Capella is that comparable to Drummond. His production's been down this year from last year. He's around the fantasy point per minute. When you're talking about someone that is likely to play the same number of minutes in a worse matchup, and on average, averages 0.3 of a fantasy point less per minute, it's just really, really tough to want to get to Capella in that case. So I think Capella is interesting because of what I think is going to be a lot of minutes here, but it's just still really difficult to get to him when I think Drummond looks so much better.
Slim Brody says, is Drummond the must play on DraftKings cash? Yes.
Yes. Cash. Yeah.
Yep. For sure. Anything else? No, all right, we're good. Let's make the pivot over to Utah. We got free content on the site today too. Every day we rotate through it. So if you're looking to get some action in NBA, we got the free player rankings, free PGA top golfers for Thursday, free NHL player rankings. Our guys have been crushing NHL lately. And ready for this? Free college basketball rankings. Ben told me today, projections. The college basketball projections are totally free today. Ben mentioned before our show that there's like 120 games or something, Adam. 120 college basketball games today. I don't know how he keeps up with everything that he does.
I have no idea. That's insane to me.
And he's like an avid horse better. He bets the ponies all the time. I truly have no idea. Oh, and he bets a ton of soccer. Like the guy I've never seen somebody compartmentalize things as well as he does. Could you imagine trying to do horse racing, soccer, college football, college basketball, and NFL all at one time?
I can't imagine trying to do like projections and stuff for them because like I do most of the fantasy sports all at once, but I'm not the one doing projections. I'm just plugging other people's work into stuff. I can't imagine trying to keep track of it all like for myself.
Well, he's got it all up in his head, which is even crazier.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it really is. Anyway, college basketball projections by Matt Kajeski, super sharp fella himself, free at awesemo.com. You don't have to even create an account, but if you want to, use the promo code NBA Deeper Dive, all one word, 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That's ownership, top stack tool, boom bust, lineup builder, everything for every sport, not just basketball, football, hockey, PGA, MMA, everything, literally every basketball, of course, everything we have. If they have contests for it, we've got content. All these tools created by Awesemo himself, Alex Baker, #1 ranked player out there. Fellas won a lot of money using these tools. So have our guys, so have our subs. And we have a premium Discord. Jump into that. Hop in the office hours channel. We'll help you become a better player with the pros answering your questions every day. So NBA Deeper Dive, awesemo.com/join if you want to get in on that. If not, check out all the free content we have and Adam's free Deeper Dive, best breakdown, most comprehensive NBA plays article you're going to read any day of the week, be it in front or behind paywall, free 365 days a year. Well, however long the season is, right on the homepage. Check that out as well. All right. How are we approaching the Utah Jazz today, starting with Donnie Mitchell?
I think Mitchell is a really interesting tournament option because I just like the upside that he offers. I think that, he's in that same price range as Trae Young, but the matchup's better for him. He's getting similar ownership at 18%. He's been really, really heavily involved this year. Not that that's surprising, but even more so than usual. In the games he's played with Mike Conley, he has a 35% usage rate. Overall this year, a 36% usage rate, but also his assist percentage is up 27% overall this year. He's averaging 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, and it's not even like he's shooting lights out. He has a 53.2% true shooting percentage. So I like getting to Mitchell. I'm willing to, if the ownership stays about the same between him and Young, I'm getting more Mitchell, less Trae Young. But Mitchell also is someone where, if you are playing a little bit less Giannis, not going quite as stars and scrubs because of the current lack of value, Mitchell is at least someone that is capable of getting you 50, 60 DraftKings points. Not that that's the most likely case, but he's one of the guys that is at least capable of putting you in the same ballpark as your Paul George or Giannis type plays. So I like Mitchell quite a bit here. Gobert's salary has come up, but he's producing at a really high rate this year as well. He has a 28.3% rebounding percentage for the season. His usage rate's at 19%, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute. Still very difficult to get to him because you have Andre Drummond taking up a center spot and he's expensive, but I do think that Gobert offers a really nice ceiling as well. So those are the two that stand out from Utah. But then you do also get Jordan Clarkson with a 29% usage rate at 5,200. Bojan Bogdanovic at 5,300. I think looks like a reasonable mid-range play. So I think I'll be getting to those guys as well, just for their upside.
All right. Top options from both sides of this one.
Mitchell, Gobert, if you can get to him, Clarkson, Bogdanovich. I didn't mention them, but obviously guys like Ingles, O'Neal, even Hassan Whiteside, at 4,100, hoping that for one reason or another he picks up a couple of extra minutes at the expense of Gobert. These guys are all fine in tournaments, but I think Mitchell's the priority for me from this game. Gobert, Clarkson, Bogdanovich look like the next tier of guys, but I just kind of wanted to be clear that it's a 3-game slate. Any of these guys are fine.
So usually when you have a 3-game like TNT slate or whatever it is, you have a lot of good players, like elite players. So it might be an abbreviated slate, but you have a lot of guys that it's kind of top heavy. So here you have like Mitchell, Lillard, Trae Young, Paul George, Giannis. Paul George and Giannis somewhat in a tier of their own. Among the guys in this 9K range, where it's like I'll throw Rudy Gobert in there as well because he's pretty close to that. With like Rudy, Mitchell, Lillard, and Trae Young, who do you like the most?
It's Mitchell for me.
Okay. Malevolent Elephant said Ben's the first guy I heard say in a vacuum. Now everyone says it on Awesemo. Ben says a lot of smart things, but that's been around forever.
Yeah.
That's been around like since I started like back in 2013, at least from a DFS standpoint. All right. You want to move on to Portland and the Clippers?
Yep.
All right, Jordan, I'm going to just to get a flow a little bit better here. All right. Let's do the Hall of Fame after Portland. All right. So just bear with me here. We just did a bunch of reads and stuff. I'm trying to, help the people out a little bit. Plus, you just got us over 400 likes. So even at the same, we're going to crush 500. We have to. We just got 22 minutes to go. We'll lead these guys in the live before lock with a nice solid amount of likes. Portland at the Clippers. 2.5 point spread. Clippers favored by 2.5, 221 total. What do you make right now? And I know this is kind of a dumb question, but I'll ask you anyway, because I already kind of know the answer to this. And I'll never forget 2 years ago when you and I talked about Lillard, where he just was going 80 fantasy points. And this was after a really rough stretch, but then he got to a point where he was very expensive. And you're like, yeah, I just don't see him being able to keep this up. I can't pay for him here. And then he kept doing it and he kept doing it. You know as well as I do that it's not quantifiable. We can't predict it. But the Lillard explosion over like a 2-3 week span where he's just legitimately unstoppable and every team he faces, he just lights them on fire, figurative, metaphorically speaking, of course, it will be here. We just don't know when.
Yeah, it'll be here. It's going to happen. And that's why I always think he's a good play at these lower prices. He's 8,500 on FanDuel. He's 9,200 on DraftKings. He's, in my opinion, he's one of the most difficult guys to price in DFS because Steph Curry's kind of like this too. If you put him at like 9,200, like he is now, he's going to be popular because his median projection ends up being good. Mm-hmm. If you put him at 10K, it's going to make it really difficult to roster him because the median projection is not great, but his ceiling is still pretty high for 10K because he can just go out there and get 65 DraftKings points relatively easily. You see the same kind of thing with Steph, last night where he's overpriced at 10,500, but then he just goes and drops 86 DraftKings points and nobody really blinks an eye when he does it. So guys like that are really difficult to price because it's like you're either playing a really popular Dame because the price tag is appealing, or you're overpaying for his median production. It's just really hard to get like a middle ground there. Right now, he's at the point where you're not overpaying and he is popular. So I think he's a good play. Again, I actually like Donovan Mitchell a little bit more, especially considering that Mitchell's getting a little bit less ownership as well. But I do think for me, it's Mitchell, then Lillard, then Trae Young amongst those 3 point guards in that price range.
So Lillard's popular, but he's not insanely popular for a 3-game slate.
I think he's also a much better play on FanDuel. Not to say he's not a good play on DraftKings, but and it's reflected in the ownership. He's 40% on FanDuel. He's 8,500, and CJ McCollum is 8K, so they're really close in salary. On DraftKings, you have a $2,000 difference between Lillard and McCollum. That's too big of a gap. They're playing similar minutes. You're going to get 36 or 37 from McCollum if this game's close. You'll get around 38 for Lillard. They're producing about the same. Even if you think that Lillard produces at a higher rate going forward, which I do. I think his usage comes up as he starts shooting better, but it's not going to be a massive gap. So I think on DraftKings, just the difference between them makes McCollum look better and Lillard look worse, whereas on FanDuel, Lillard looks better and McCollum looks worse.
So I was going to mention that. I'm glad you did. Lillard is not the highest owned by a mile. of his own of the Blazers on DraftKings right now. It's significant gap between him and McCollum coming in at 36%.
Yeah, and that makes a ton of sense to me. I think that, McCollum actually has a higher usage rate than Lillard this year. I don't think that continues, but I think that you're going to see it be close enough over the course of the season. One thing that we're seeing in the past with Terry Stotts, typically they would stagger McCollum and Lillard, but then there would be periods of time where he decided
last year, though, didn't
he? Yeah,
he,
where he didn't want to do it. Billups is doing it consistently. When Lillard's not on the floor, McCollum is. That's something that's a lot more important for CJ McCollum than it is for Damian Lillard, because typically Lillard's just going to get his regardless, and McCollum sort of takes a back seat. But when you get McCollum playing those minutes, the Dame's not out there, he runs the show and he really produces well. So seeing the rotations be what they are makes McCollum look like a really strong option. And then he's really obviously underpriced on DraftKings too.
So this season they've played. This season, you have Lillard has played. Let's see here. I got it right here. He's played. Yeah, so close to a third of the minutes they aren't playing together. That's a lot. Is one of them playing every minute? The other one isn't on the floor?
Yeah.
You would think so, right? Yeah. That's significant. I mean, that's where McCollum has been very good, because now he's your primary ball handler. He's your highest usage player. That sticks out. It really does. Is he one of your favorite plays on the slate?
On DraftKings for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's also pretty popular. He's like top 5 in ownership right now. That price just seems way too cheap. I mean, obviously you're going to see this balance out soon enough. You're going to, I think a month from now, you're probably going to look at Lillard and McCollum and be like, oh, maybe that gap was sensible. But
I don't think this gap, I think that it should be like 9,200 for Dame, 8,200 for McCollum, something like that.
All right. Yeah. 8,200 for McCollum. I guess. I don't know. He's having with the way he's played this season, definitely. But if you're taking historical data from McCollum, I don't think you could ever price him at 8,200 consistently.
Since the start of last year, he's at 1.12 DraftKings points per minute. This year, he's at 1.13. He's not doing anything special this year. It's more so that Lillard's doing worse. Lillard, since the start of last year, 1.33, 1.11 so far this season. I mean, McCollum is doing what he's kind of always done, playing 36, 37 minutes, getting over a fantasy point per minute.
Maybe the deception is that he's just been remarkably consistent this year.
Yeah, that could be it.
I don't know, because he's been like over 40 almost every game, which is impressive. Do you turn to anybody else for Portland today outside of Dame, outside of McCollum? You've got Norman Powell. You got guys like Anthony Simons, Larry Nance. You got to bring these guys up just because they're cellar dwellers, right? They're down at the bottom of the player pool. They're going to open things up. This isn't to say that any of them are exciting, but can you look at a Larry Nance and be like, all right, you know what? He's not far off from a fantasy point per minute. He's always been a decent enough producer. Maybe he gives me 20 tonight in 17, 18 minutes and I can get there.
Yeah, I think that. So Norman Powell at 5,200, I think just a pretty useful small forward option. He's probably going to play 32 or 33 minutes. He's not the most productive player, but he should be out there. He's pretty cheap. He looks like a pretty solid option to me. Anthony Simons is right now my favorite sub 4K guy at 3,800. He's averaging about 23, 24 minutes per game. He's averaging just shy of a fantasy point per minute this year. The ceiling is somewhat capped because barring injury or something weird happening, he's never, going to go take over a game. Like, he's playing all of his minutes with at least one of Lillard or McCollum on the floor, but he's consistently getting those minutes and he's still producing at a relatively high level. He's pretty inexpensive, just a better fantasy producer than George Hill at a similar price tag. You mentioned Nance at 3,100. I think that's fine. He hasn't produced at a really high rate so far this year, only averaging only averaging 0.83 DraftKings points per minute. But if he's going to play around 18, 19 minutes at 3,100, that's a decent value. And we know from the past that he's capable of doing a lot of things well when he's on the floor. So you could certainly see him have a bigger game than he's had to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing, right, is like most of the value on today's slate, a lot of it at least, will probably come from Philadelphia. So maybe there's other ways to get different, but I'm not coming into this one expecting a big game from Nance. You'd hope that if he can get you to 20-22 on a 3-game slate, that maybe that's enough to squeeze some expensive players into your lineup and get you where you need to go. Anything else for Portland?
No, that's it.
All right. Let's shout out all of our people with the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Jordan, pull that baby up. We got some big winners coming through lately. If you're wondering what this is, I'll tell you, and then we'll close it out with the Clippers. You get a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, $90 value, if you tweet us at Awesemo Hall of Fame with your screenshot of a win in the event that you're rocking the Awesemo avatar and you finish first through third in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter if it's on DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, wherever. Doesn't matter if it's the quarter arcade or the dime or the nickel or whatever it is. Top three, field of 5,000 or more. Even if the takedown is a $50 first place bink, don't matter. We got you. That subscription could be worth more than your winnings. It still doesn't matter. We celebrate everyone here because it's just as difficult, more difficult in some of those massive field tournaments with low stakes to bink. So go to awesemo.com/avatar, download it, sport that, join the team, and let's get into a couple of these. Chronic Wizard, first place out of 11,900 in the daily dollars. That's what I'm talking about. Strong win, showdown last night. Fryermuth at captain, huge. Congrats, man. And then, of course, you have Big E. Took down NBA Late Night Hammer yesterday as a current active duty U.S. Marine Corps vet. Thanks for your service, brother. This couldn't come at a better time right now before Marine Corps birthday and Vets Day. Thanks, Laffy, Josh, and all the haters who think you guys steer them in the wrong direction. $5,800 hit right there. Congrats, dude. What else do we have here? Oh, Locks, Jordan Lockhart. Obviously, this just happens every day. There's a new one, $12,000, second place in the PGA. Now he's winning PGA tournaments. Joe Flanagan took down NHL main slate last night. Shout out to Awesemo, Jake, Josh, and Cliffy. Live streams have been helping me and my game. Thank you. Now, someone tell me how to get in the Awesemo Hall of Fame. You're in it, fella. $20,000 up top. Congrats. And we close it out with Sheldon. Another first place in the books. Awesemo tools and resources help make it happen. $700 bink. Download the avatar, awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Awesemo Hall of Fame. Include Adam and myself in them because we like to see you win and take down that free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum and get mentioned here. Everybody likes to get a shout out and get praise. Of course, that's why we tweet about it and have the Hall of Fame. So congrats to everybody. We'll see the next one up here tomorrow. All right, wrap it up with the Clippers, Adam. 20, like I said, 2.5-point favorites. Paul George sporting a pretty hefty price tag, but this fella's pretty good when Kawhi Leonard's out. And, you know, he's been pretty solid this season as well. What price point do we get to on Paul George, regardless of size of slate, where you say, all right, I got to pump the brakes a little bit?
I'm not sure, but it's not this one, especially on DraftKings. You know, I kind of mentioned it when we talked about Giannis. I think on DraftKings, George looks better than he does on FanDuel because the gap between him and Giannis is bigger, whereas on FanDuel, it's just going to be easier to get to Giannis if you're paying up for one of the two. So, you know, he's still expensive. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's like a requirement that you roster either one or anything like that. But I do think that the savings you get from Giannis to George could be useful on DraftKings. He's been really good this year. He's got a 33.2% usage rate. He's averaging about 1.4 to 1.5 DraftKings points per minute, 26.6% assist percentage, and he's likely to play 36 or 37 minutes, assuming this game's close. So I think he looks like a good option. If I can, I would rather get to Giannis, but it's not a bad consolation prize to end up on Paul George if it improves somewhere else in your lineup.
Where's his ownership compared to Giannis right now?
28% on DraftKings compared to 38% for Giannis.
So it's not a massive gap there.
No.
At all. Giannis 60% on FanDuel, where we have multi-position eligibility now, and then Paul George 32%. That's a huge gap, Adam.
Yeah, it's just the price gap is not enough. Not as big of a deal.
$500. Yeah, you're right. If you're looking around the rest of this team, outside of Paul George, who, you know, is the clear front runner to be the top scorer by a mile, you have Reggie Jackson pulling some ownership. He's on FanDuel at 34% right now. On DraftKings, you have Reggie Jackson at 27%. Terrence Mann pulling a little bit of weight. Even Eric Bledsoe. I mean, this is one of those teams that, just looking at the entire roster, there's a lot of ownership going to the Clippers tonight against this Portland team that's really struggled early on.
Yeah, this is a team that I think I'm going to get a lot of exposure to. You know, obviously wasn't super high on Atlanta, not super high on Utah, even though I like them more than Atlanta. The Clippers are a team where I think pretty much everybody looks like a solid option. Eric Bledsoe at 4,300 on DraftKings, only getting 18% ownership. Kind of surprised it's that low. He's averaging around 26 minutes per game this year. We've seen recently in competitive games that actually increase a little bit. He didn't play. He played 24 minutes in the blowout 2 days ago, but you got 29 minutes against Minnesota 2 games ago, 25, 26 against Minnesota and Oklahoma City before that. So if you're going to get around 26 minutes from him, he hasn't been great this year, but the opportunities are still there for him. He's averaged 0.86 DraftKings points per minute, 22.8% assist percentage is second highest on the team behind George. And he's just really, really cheap. So I like Bledsoe. You're getting a ton of minutes from Reggie Jackson this year. 6,300 is a reasonable price tag for him. Batum, if you rostered Batum the other day, you kind of got screwed because he played really, really well and then just never came back into that game. That's kind of that's the downside to the Clippers, but also the reason why there's so many guys on this team that look good. The closing lineup is pretty inconsistent outside of Paul George. Like, you're going to get some games where Batum closes and ends up at 32 or 33 minutes. You're going to get other games where you get Terrence Mann playing out of his mind and getting 34 minutes like he did the other night. So, you can't trust that Mann plays that many minutes, but knowing that it's there lets you get to some Terrence Mann. It lets you get to some Batum. Zubats has been playing more minutes. I'm expecting him to play around 28 here at 5,300. Makes him look like a good value. Again, there's a lot of opportunity costs at that position because of Drummond, but I think he looks like a good value. You have Kennard at 4,500, probably playing around 28 minutes. Just the fact that the Clippers are willing to let the hot hand stay in the closing lineup makes it so they're pretty appealing in tournaments, because you really only care about what happens when they're playing well. If you have if you have Nick Batum and he misses his final closing rotation because he's playing poorly, it probably doesn't matter to you because that team was dead anyway because Batum was playing poorly. But knowing that, when guys like Mann or Kennard or at times Batum are playing well, that they can get those extra minutes makes them look pretty good in tournaments.
The sex bots are back, Adam.
Oh, good.
They've been gone for a while. Now they're promoting some 18 plus streams. You guys better not bail on us with Live Before Lock coming up. They'll be there later. I promise you. Plus, they're going to make you pay. It's in this day and age, it's just not worth it. You know what I mean?
It said I'm waiting on 18 plus streams was hidden by Eric Lindquist. And I just quickly was reading. I thought it said on 18 plus streams with Eric Lindquist. That's interesting.
The man's getting married this week. Come on. But yeah, listen, the bots in an odd way, I missed them. So welcome back for the short duration that you were here. Who are your favorite plays from the Clippers and from the Trailblazers? And is this your favorite all around game on the slate? Of course, Philadelphia on that one side is just hugely attractive, but could you see this game being the one that just puts it over the top, or is there no real distinction? Because I would assume that Atlanta, Utah as a whole is the least appealing overall.
The Clippers Portland game is the game that I feel the best about, that I'm looking forward to rostering the most. I think I get the most exposure from the Sixers game just out of necessity, but I do not feel very good about that at all. So I guess it's kind of my favorite game. As far as favorite plays from the Clippers, George, obviously, if you can get there, looks great. I like Bledsoe a lot on DraftKings at 4,300. I just think that he gives you a different sort of ceiling at 4,300 than guys like Hill and Simons do at 3,800 if you can find the extra money. It's kind of, when you talk to Zubats, Batum, Mann, I think those guys are all kind of interchangeable.
Dude, I would like these sex bots so much more if they'd hit the thumbs up button, Jordan. Hammer that thumbs up when you come in here and promote your shit. Anyway, we're almost at 600 likes. Appreciate it. And hey, shout out your boy Jordan Klein for producing this show. He does a great job as always, pulling the long hours out there on the West Coast in his bachelor pad. No, you're not a bachelor, actually. What am I talking about? All right, Adam, if we're looking at this, we got a few minutes to go. The top plays on this slate from a salary standpoint are Giannis, Paul George, and then Trey, Lillard, and Mitchell. You already said you like Mitchell over those guys. If you're playing, say, a single entry tournament, okay, someone asked about Drummond earlier. We had the same answer, but if you're playing a single entry tournament and you want to get two of these guys into your lineup and fill it out with maybe some cheaper Sixers and a punt here or there, who are the first two guys going into your lineup? Say a large field, not too large, but a relatively large field single entry tournament.
So just overall, like regardless of price.
Yeah, like let's say, let's say you're making no. I mean, all things considered, if you're making a lineup, say you're hand building lineup, or you're using our lineup builder, which is a super helpful tool for that. Who would the first two studs going in your lineup be before you start building around them?
Oh, I mean, so for one thing, if you're building my hand, I typically build the opposite direction. I start at the bottom. But
yeah, you don't have. Maybe I'll rephrase it. I'm saying who the guys like if you could get two of those guys into your lineup, who would be the preferred options?
Oh, Giannis and George.
Okay, but I mean, can you build a decent lineup with them?
No.
Right. So, like, how do you build a decent lineup? Which guys can you build the best lineup with that are also going to give you the best chance of winning?
In my opinion, probably Mitchell, and I don't know that I really get a lot of the top tier guys. Like, I mean, I think, Giannis Mitchell or George Mitchell, something like that, it saves you some money off of the Giannis plus George. But to me, I think you can make really strong lineups where like Mitchell or Lillard or Young, whoever you prefer, is like your most expensive player. You're getting Drummond at 7,700. He's not exactly cheap anymore. And then you're mixing in some of those 5K guys that can still go for 35 points as opposed to the, extra value piece that you're hoping gets 18.
So I said yesterday that I was going to bet the farm on the Bears money line, not because I thought they'd win, but because the week had been so insane. I got to tell you, Adam, had it not been for that absurd taunting call, which actually helped me in the betting market a lot. Have you ever seen, I tweeted yesterday that I'm not one of those, I use the term conspiracy theorist when it comes to football. I have some other things that I like to dive into, but when it comes to football, I don't look at it as it's rigged. And a lot of the people that say it's rigged are still the ones that are pissed, but are betting on it every week. Seems odd to me that you'd be wagering on a rigged sport, right?
Yeah. Also, I don't understand. Like, I get that it was ridiculous looking, but everybody keeps tweeting about the ref, reaching for his flag and then hip checking whatever his name is as he runs off the field. That like
Cassius Marsh.
Yeah, but they're acting like that was what was called. Like, there was no penalty for running into the ref. That would be insane.
No.
But if there was, he would have been ejected from the game. So like,
he said
it was
he
a weird
looked at
look,
the sidelines.
Right. But like, people are like, oh, it's rigged because look, the ref initiated the contact and then throws the flag. Like, you didn't call a penalty for that.
No, of course not. And what I was saying though is, I think it gives people that are referring to the NFL, it gives them a lot of ammunition. Like,
Sure.
if you were to be a random person watching a game for the first time in 10 years and saw that, you'd be like, yeah, well, that's why I don't watch anymore,
Yeah. And to be fair, like, part of the reason that I barely watch football anymore is because the refs suck and games typically come down to some bad call at the end. So that definitely reinforces that as well.
No doubt. Yeah. It's wild. I don't understand much of what happened yesterday. I think some of these refs are just overzealous, man. They call some wild shit, but hey, Manny C, thanks for the super chat. He says it's for producer Jordan Klein. He's the Trojan man, keeping us protected when we run into these sex bots. Thanks, dude. Thanks to all you guys for hanging out. Stick around. Eric Gregg coming up next. Remember, check out Jock Market. Use the promo code Awesemo for $100 deposit match bonus up to $50. Follow Adam, Ship My Money DFS, me, Laffy_D, and say what's up to your boy Jordan Klein. Putting in the hours every single day. Eric Gregg coming up next. It's the Deeper Dive live before lock on the other side. Peace.
is the best beat we've had yet.
Jordan does a really good job making beats.
He's been in the lab. Back to the lab again. Nope. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock show, presented by Jock Market. I'm Eric Lindquist. This is not my typical kind of stream, obviously, but you know what? It will do. OnlyFans, that's just only for the fans, of course. But I'm looking forward to this slate. We just got some massive news as we were logging on. That's exciting. Great job by the guys going on before us, setting us up here for success, for sure. Keep that going. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you know when this and all the other great content is going live here at Awesemo. But I'm here to introduce the guy who's going to be giving you all of the hard-hitting analysis here today on this three-gamer, which I think is more fun than the average three-gamer, especially with the news we just got. That's G. Ehrenberg. That's Greg Ehrenberg, DFS. Hang on, I just literally switched those up in my brain. At G. Ehrenberg, DFS on Twitter. Greg Ehrenberg in real life. How you doing, my dude?
Yeah, it's getting the boundaries between real life and fantasy. They are getting they're getting twisted these days on the internet. I wasn't watching the show before, but I've heard about your new career path, and frankly, I think it's something that you'll be slightly more successful in. I know it's something. I know EMAC has a little bit more experience in that realm, with what he used to do under that bridge in Golden State to pay off his mortgage. But listen, we've got an NBA slate today, and we've got news because Seth Curry was just ruled out.
Seth Curry was ruled out. Seems pretty important to talk about. Every piece of news matters a lot on a three-game slate, kind of regardless of what it is. We'll be waiting on Atlanta news as we're talking here now. But of course, let's just start with Seth Curry right from the top here. Guys broke everything down so well for all six teams, all three games on the stream before us. But this piece of news changes a lot. I assumed when he got downgraded earlier in the day that he would be out. I just figured I'd wait because it shouldn't take too long to be able to adjust. Just three games. This is the first one we had to look at, but Andre Drummond already getting a ton of rostership, and now we have to kind of be looking at every single other piece of this Philadelphia team. We'll wait on this starting lineup because I had a hunch. I have a hunch that Paul Reed is going to end up starting here in this spot. But what is the main takeaway here in the aftermath of Seth Curry getting ruled out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly curious to see what the new what the updated data is going to be in terms of ownership and the boom bust tool here. I hope Paul Reed starts. It's a little hard to find value on this slate, and there are some value plays to go to. I guess we consider Andre Drummond just as a points per dollar value play. Furkan Korkmaz is somebody to get to, but I'm hoping this kind of spreads the ownership out a little bit because there was only so many cheap plays that I liked getting to, and now we just add Paul Reed into the mix, and hopefully that does disperse the massive amount of chalk on some individual plays. Agreed.
I'm hoping that. Again, Paul Reed, I think, is going to start. That's been my suspicion since last night. Speaking of EMAC, the guy that Chad just blew up for, as you were telling him about his deeds of the 1970s good times. Those 60s. Must have been really. What was that?
No, it was the 60s.
The 60s. All right. Yeah. Just a fun loving guy, that EMAC for sure. Check us out on the Slate Starter Pod. He's filling out here for a Renpak who sounds like did a fantastic job over at Stanford, telling those idiots in class, that don't know anything about math, a little bit about what he does. No, I'm just obviously kidding, but yes, very happy that Ryan could do that and very happy to have EMAC alongside me. But I'm going to just say I think it was going to be Paul Reed from the get-go, and if we get that news, that would be excellent because I do want to play a 3,300 Paul Reed, make it stars and scrubsy. I hope that lineup comes out like 10 minutes before lock. That would be extremely helpful. So Doc Rivers, you've screwed me over however many times before. Be nice this time to Greg and I, who can kind of adjust and be 50x on or 50x the field on Paul Reed. That's impossible. 5x the field makes a lot more sense on Paul Reed, but I'm excited to get talking about this entire slate. Let's start at guard. We go position by position here. We only have a couple games here to talk about, but we're going to be flying through it here for you. Same kind of analysis. Furkan Korkmaz sitting there at the top of the ownership. He's shooting guard and small forward eligible. Shooting guard primarily over on FanDuel. Well, only that. CJ McCollum, another guy who's up there up top. 7,200 is just too low of a number for that guy. And Drew Holiday in that game where we want to start getting some bucks and have some interest in the bucks on the other side of all of this Philly value. Excited as we're kind of waiting to see what that ownership is going to turn out. Where are you looking at guard amongst some of these more popular plays?
Well, first of all, I am looking at, and also, do we have an ownership update since the Seth Curry news? I feel no, but perhaps we did not quite yet. So I'll keep an eye on that. And I'm working out what I think the Sixers rotation is going to be, and I kind of think Shake Milton is going to start, not Furkan Korkmaz. So I mean, not Paul Reed, who
Okay.
we were just talking about there. So I'm going to like Shake Milton quite a bit today. We've seen Milton in some other starts this year play a really massive amount of minutes, and he didn't start last game, but he did start the 2 games prior to that. He played 36 and 34 minutes in those games. So just based on that information, I'm assuming that he's going to be the starter as of right now, and I think he's going to play like 35, 36 minutes.
Okay. Well, Shake Milton, yeah, he started alongside Tyrese Maxey the other day. That went really well for everybody involved. I ended up with 100% of Shake Milton, and not something that I normally do where I lock in players, but it seems to be something I'm doing a lot more than the average time lately. Not just Josh Hart yesterday, where it kind of was like a random piece that I thought at 5K was undervalued, but Andre Drummond for sure was like a lock button for me on the last slate. It's going to be hard to get away from a lot of Drummond again tonight. We'll get there eventually here. But I want to be looking at Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey, all of these guys. There's really no way around it. As much as I love late swap and I want to be able to find some Atlanta value, there's still enough guys in that Atlanta rotation, whether it's Cam Reddish, Kevin Huerter, Danilo Gallinari, that the DeAndre Hunter news, yeah, it matters. Bogdanovich news, it matters, but not nearly as much. And I think I have enough Clippers interest right now where I'll have some positions to be able to land on some of those guys. It really becomes this Philly party for me, and there's no way around it. I think on the top end, Tyrese Maxey, 6,200 might look weird, but I think he's kind of my favorite because I expect him to be rostered a little bit less than Shake Milton as a result, kind of around the industry because of the tag. What's your interest in Tyrese Maxey specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly like Tyrese Maxey. Also, if you want to talk about some of the workload that we've seen from Tyrese Maxey in recent games, that's also been pretty insane. So last game, he played 39 minutes, the least amount of minutes he played in a week, because the games before that, he played 44 and 45 minutes. So, it's a tail end of a back-to-back. Maybe if it's a blowout, the Sixers try to limit the minutes of the starters to some extent. But we just had the news god in Discord chat. Here's the full list of all the players that are active today for the 76ers. Maxey, Milton, Green, Korkmaz, Drummond, Niang, Paul Reed, Jaden Springer, Aaron Henry, Charles Bassey. And of those guys, Springer, Henry, and Bassey, all of them played 0 minutes last night. So I think this is going to be a fairly tight rotation for the Sixers, who are already missing a bunch of guys. So I think really everybody in the Sixers lineup, especially on a 3-game slate, makes for a strong play. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to likely be overweight to the field on Tyrese Maxey alongside with you, unless he has some kind of crazy ownership when we get our next update.
Agreed. I think he's my favorite of those groupings in the aftermath of the Seth Curry news. Shake Milton, if he ends up in the starting lineup, I expect that number to go way, way, way up on him as well. So as opposed to last time where I think it was just kind of jamming Shake Milton, that news broke really, really late that he was starting too. And that was, I think, a little bit more advantageous for us. So again, I'm just hoping for a different starting lineup than what the public convention is so that we can maybe extract some value of it. Maybe it's wishful thinking. Maybe that's kind of what I'm going for there. But there's some other guard plays that we really need to be considering on this slate. There are some spend ups too. Trae Young, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell. I know that Adam on the previous show had talked about Donovan Mitchell being a play that he had a lot of interest in. I'm not sure how much I'm going to be landing on him. It's just, he was more specific to me when Mike Conley was out, being able to get to a lot of him that other day. And that was about it. Trae Young coming off a back-to-back. I don't know. He seems like a guy that you might want to go to. For me, it's really Damian Lillard. I expect him, for a guy who was around 1.3 DraftKings points per minute all of last season, for him to be down around 1.1 here, it's a substantial drop, but he's still under 10K. He's going to start shooting the ball eventually. And he does have this like blow up potential that on any slate, not just a 3-gamer, it could be an 11-game slate where he could go for 70. It's been really bad, no question about it. But in lineups where I'm trying to get a little bit different, I think Damian Lillard is kind of the spend up guard that I'm getting to the most. What are you doing with those 3 spend up guards here?
Well, here's the issue, though. If the argument was you're playing Damian Lillard to be contrarian, if he was contrarian, I'd say by all means, but he's currently projected for 21% ownership on DraftKings. On FanDuel, we have Dame projected for 40% ownership. So he's fairly popular. And amongst the spend up options, Dame's popular, Trae Young a little bit less so. But I'd rather go to Paul George for similar ownership today.
Mhm.
Paul George is projected for 28% ownership on DraftKings compared to the 21% for Dame. So a little bit higher, but not anything crazy for a 3-game slate. And I have Paul George number 1 projected for a lot more fantasy points. But then number 2, we have a lot of value available to us. I just reran my lineups. I'm getting to a lot more of Paul George than I did earlier just because of that Seth Curry news. And then something else to consider, a lot of the value that we have is at guard. So I think it makes a lot of sense to save money at guard and then pay up at forward.
I agree to a certain extent. I mean, for me too, you have 2 guys that are projected over 50 points on DK, Paul George and Giannis. And anytime you get more value, you should be playing more of those guys. I think that completely makes sense. And then Andre Drummond, who's projected for more than 50 points, he's kind of at 7,700 in his own tier because you're not really spending a pretty penny for him. But out of that entire grouping where it becomes like 40, the next guys who are all projected over 40, those Trae Young, Damian Lillard, Rudy Gobert, specifically for me, it's like, what's the ceiling comparably to Paul George? And I still think Damian Lillard, who no doubt about it has been really, really bad. But part of it, I mean, against the Lakers, that ended up being a 15-point win. It was actually a much larger blowout than that. That kind of kept his minutes down. He started getting it going against the Lakers. They were up 20 in the first quarter. It was never close at any point till the end there. 31 minutes. I mean, if he goes 39, 40 minutes in that game, you're looking at a super ceiling for Damian Lillard. You know, you're looking more at the 55, 60 with full run there. I'm just kind of investing on his historical data as opposed to just saying, okay, he's similar. Like he's obviously, 10%, 15% lower than what Paul George is going to be here as we get closer to lock, as we get more value. So I think he becomes a little bit more valuable as a differentiating piece closer to lock we get. So I think for me, that's kind of my appeal of Damian Lillard. Trae Young, I'm almost never there on Trae Young, which is kind of a bummer. But, I think amongst Donovan Mitchell and him, those 3, I'm prioritizing Lillard. But I understand Paul George, definitely the guy who 10 points more projected for, and you get so much value. There's no doubt about it that he makes a lot of sense. All in on Lillard tonight. I did not say that, Nathan Joyce, not the words that I said, but I definitely like being over 20%. All right, let's go to the rest of this guard position here. Reggie Jackson, kind of a guy that I expect to start being able to carry some of the offensive load for this Clippers team, has definitely shown 50-point upside against Minnesota there. They've now rattled off 4 in a row here. The Clippers are starting to come back into form here, and I think Reggie Jackson's play of late has been a big reason why. How do you kind of stand with him, Drew Holiday, Tyrese Maxey? I mean, they're all in that low 6K range, and now Maxey is definitely your and I think, favorite of them. Who else are you kind of pairing him with?
Yeah, so there's a couple of reasons that I really like Reggie Jackson. Number 1 is I do think that he's a good kind of differentiation play in the mid-range of the point guard position. And also, I mean, not to bring this totally back to Damian Lillard, because, I mean, we've already kind of gone over that and we're going to disagree on that. But he has not scored more than 47 fantasy points in a single game so far this year. And he's still fairly expensive. It's not like his price has come down. Mm-hmm. Reggie Jackson has more 50-plus fantasy point games this year than Damian Lillard has. So relative to price, I actually think that Reggie Jackson has more upside at his salary than what Damian Lillard has. And then one other thing to like about Reggie Jackson also is he kind of serves as a placeholder spot because we have those guys from the Hawks that are listed as questionable. If they do get ruled out, I'm going to want to swap on to some of them because we're also going to be able to get them at somewhat of lower ownership. I expect a lot of the field to be flocking to the Philadelphia 76ers with Seth Curry's out. And if I manually bump the projection, of Reggie Jackson, I'm going to be getting to more of the Clippers guys, and that'll give me more flexibility to swap if anything happens with those Hawks guys where we get value.
All right. Lillard didn't touch the floor in the fourth quarter against the Lakers. I'm just pointing it out there. He would have definitely been over 50 in that spot, probably well over 50. But I get what you're saying. I get it. He's been bad. I'm not trying to defend what he's done outside of that one Lakers game in 3 quarters of work. So I'm not going to defend that. I'm just going to defend what he's done in the past and what I know he's probably capable of in this spot. But I'm there with you. I think that a number of those other plays make sense in this mid 6K range. I really like Reggie Jackson as well. So I like that you're there with me there. We've got a couple super chats to kind of touch on here. Yes, Jordan Klein sending them all the way over to me. First guy right out of the gate here. Let's see where to go. There we go. Jake Statler. If it wasn't for Awesemo, I wouldn't have gone out and bought myself a nice hefty tax write-off today. Some would call it a truck. Thanks a million. Well, Thanks to yourself, dude. That's all you. Glad to be able to help provide the insight, and that Awesemo has all the tools for you to be able to go out and dominate. Congratulations. I wish I could get a truck at the moment. That'd be great.
Well, he calls it a truck. I call it an Eric Lindquist OnlyFans subscription, but neither here nor there.
Yeah, I was going to say, how else am I going to pay for this damn wedding? Here we go. Tharusha Gunatalaki. I tried my best. I think I got it all right, but thank you so much for the super chat as well. 2 versus 2 on DK. We're going Greek George Hill or Drummond CJ for a GPP. I can tell you, George Hill is the one piece that will not be popular out of that entire grouping. So take that for what you will, but I prefer having Drummond everywhere. Yeah, Drummond for sure. He's the best play on the slate, and once again, just refreshing ownership. We did get an ownership update, which we could circle on now that we have that updated for the 76ers news. Drummond's only projected for 56.6% ownership, but whatever, 56.6% ownership on DraftKings. He's not even the most popular play on FanDuel today, which is pretty crazy to me. We have him with a nearly 80% chance of landing the optimal lineup on FanDuel in our Boom Bust tool, 70% on DraftKings. So as much ownership as he had yesterday, and Josh and I had some debates about whether it was sensible to go over or underweight to the field on him, this is just not nearly enough ownership, in my opinion. Agreed. I think he's the best play on the slate still, and that's coming off of yesterday. He was too cheap. He's too cheap still today. I will have I'd be surprised if I didn't have 100%, but I'm not going to be forcing him in. I just lock buttoned him yesterday. It just made all the sense in the world. And figure out your other 7 spots on DK, your other 8 on FanDuel. I was fine with that. But here we go. Rest of the guard position here. Is there somebody that you're getting to more of than the field? I've got a couple guys here waiting in the wings that I want to talk to you about, but who are some of your favorite under-owned plays that you're getting over the field on? All right, so let me scroll through the most recent run of ownership, and then I could get a pretty good feel for it. By the way, Reggie Jackson, not the unpopular play that I thought he could potentially be, even with the most recent run of ownership. 26% projected on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he is projected for 32.4% ownership. So much for him not being popular, despite the news. Yeah. Philadelphia 76ers eating up a lot of the chalk. We've got Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Andre Drummond on DraftKings. Those are 3 of the 4 most popular plays. Kind of a similar story over on FanDuel, but let's see. What's the ownership number that you want me to go below in terms of being an unpopular play? Well, tomorrow we have like a 13 game slate or something, and anything you could make that for. There's viable plays that are going to be under 5% tomorrow. I think today anything under 15%, I feel, or you know what, even like 20%, anything under 20% is going to be much lower owned. We're going to get so concentrated. Milton's at 37%, Maxi's at 29% over on DK. So let's say anything under 20. All right, Eric Bledsoe. He was kind of my default answer. Kind of my default answer for a lot of these, but especially considering the amount of ownership that's going to Reggie Jackson still, I think that one of the ways that Reggie Jackson potentially fails is if Eric Bledsoe plays really well. He's only $4,300 on DraftKings. He's $4,600 on FanDuel. So if you're looking for a cheap play, and by the way, it's not that I have a ton of them. I'm a little bit over 20%, but it's hard to find guys that fit your criteria of guys who are under 20% that are actually, like good high upside plays, because kind of anybody who's worth anything today is picking up some kind of ownership. I'm gonna bring up a name who maybe I should be forcing myself to get to a little bit. Clint Capella is only $6,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's priced at $7,100. He's picking up very limited ownership, and the main reason is because everybody's going to roster Andre Drummond, and that does make it pretty hard to fit Clint Capella into FanDuel lineups if you're really set on rostering Drummond. But I don't know, should Drummond really be projected for that many more fantasy points than Clint Capella? Going back to last year when both of them were starters, they were about comparably priced. So if you're looking for a pivot off of Drummond, I think Capella makes sense. Drummond is still by far my preferred option, but maybe getting to like 10% of Capella or a little higher isn't crazy. All right. We got another super chat here from Goody. $9.99. That's always a great number. How do you guys feel about locking Giannis, George, and Drummond in? I'm not going to be locking anybody in. I think I'm going to get near 100%, if not 100% Drummond, just by default for it, just kind of the way my process works. But are you going to be locking those 3 in? I very highly doubt it. No.
I don't think it's crazy to lock in Andre Drummond today. The issue with Giannis on the high end is, I still want to get to Paul George. I still want to get to guys like CJ McCollum. And even though I don't like Damian Lillard, I'm not playing 0% of Damian Lillard or 0% of Trae Young. I'm just playing less of them than the field. And if you're playing, it depends also how many lineups he's making. If he's making 3 lineups, that's no big deal. But if you're making 20, 50 lineups, something like that, then no, I think you want to diversify a little bit more than that, because I don't think that those guys are that much better plays than some of the other guys on the slate.
Yeah, so let's look at the position of it too. So Drummond, Rudy Gobert, definite ceiling. I don't think it's as much of a gap as what we had yesterday. Clint Capella, a guy that I like that you had kind of brought up there as well. Somebody that, looking at Rudy Gobert on the other side, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yesterday, it was a blowout. He didn't close. Against Phoenix, they didn't have Ayton. He didn't close. Utah, he closed there, played 36 minutes, even losing by 18 against Utah on the 4th of November. So I think all signs point to him being a guy who's going to play 32 plus minutes in this spot with upside of 36, 37 minutes as well. I think that makes him intriguing. So there's a lot of plays even at center that you kind of want to rotate. And obviously you can play 2 of them over on DK, but then power forward, we got Bobby Portis who exists at the position. We've got another guy, John Collins, that you could maybe go to a little bit of as well. But Portis specifically, that's somebody that I want to prioritize in lineups. And small forward, Batum, Powell, number of guys that we could be playing there as well. So I'm going to be mixing and matching a little bit more than saying I want to lock the 3 in, but that's the best I got for it. And then $6.99 of Canadian money, Zachary Williamson. Thank you, my guy. Danny Green versus Robert Covington, DK Cash. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I'm guessing neither are really that much of a cash consideration for me. How about you?
It's neither. If you absolutely have to roster one of them, it's a situation where it's like, oh my God, we got 36 minutes to go. But if it was like 30 seconds to lock and you absolutely had to roster one of them, I would say Danny Green as the better option of the two, just because Danny Green has scored over 20 fantasy points in 5 of his last 6 games. He remains cheap, and basically everybody's out for the Sixers. But on the flip side, he's old. He's not the greatest points per minute fantasy producer in the world. And it's the tail end of a back-to-back. He's coming off an injury. Who knows how many minutes he's going to play. I like Danny Green on yesterday's slate, but the difference between yesterday's slate and today's slate is we had Danny Green project for 3% ownership yesterday.
Yeah.
Danny Green today, at least in tournaments. And by the way, I know his question was for cash games. The answer is still in general, none, but I want to talk on Danny Green as a tournament option now. He's actually picking up ownership today, which makes him a way different looking play in my eyes than yesterday where just nobody was on him.
I think I would probably be going to Covington. And here's maybe my reasoning for it is that you have DeAndre Hunter, who, if you get Bogdanovich out and Hunter playing, I would project Hunter as just a better play, and I could play him in cash in the event that exact same $4,300 number. So I think I would probably prioritize Covington and then wait on the Atlanta news and be able to have my lineups you could be sitting with like a fantastic play in a Cam Reddish or a Kevin Huerter, or somebody would have to slot in there for DeAndre Hunter in that starting unit. And then you also have the question of Bogdanovich being out. That would be 2 starters to get replaced. Somebody's got to go in there. I would just play whoever the Atlanta starter was.
That makes sense to me. I think that is another good way to look at it, because I don't really like either of them for cash games. So if you absolutely need to, then and set up some flexibility, I don't think that's a bad way to go. While we're talking about the Hawks guys, if Bogdanovich and Hunter were both be rolled out, who do you expect would start?
Yeah, this is for me what I think the edge, and everybody knows how much I talk about late swap and have for years with Ryan. And then when we started the podcast, that was mainly what we talked about, was just how to weaponize that a little bit. And I think it would probably be Gallinari. What do you think? I think Gallinari would definitely probably jump into the starting rotation. Kevin Huerter, for sure, I think would probably be the guy to replace Bogdanovich. That would be my guess there.
So Gallo's minutes have trended up recently. He had not played over 20 minutes in any game this year. Last 2 games, he played 23 and 22 minutes. Sucked in both of them, but the minutes have been there. Cam Reddish, relatively. Cam Reddish, his minutes, on the other hand, as we've seen the playing time trend up for Danilo Gallinari, only 13 and a half minutes for Cam Reddish last game. So I tend to think that Gallo probably ahead of him in the rotation. Mm-hmm. The Kevin Huerter one's really weird because he's barely been a part of the Hawks rotation this year. In fact, he was a DNP just a couple of weeks ago. He played 0 minutes. And they gave him a massive contract extension in the offseason. They paid him like $75 million to not play him this year after he had that big playoff run. But looking at the minutes and at least how they trended recently, and looking at last game in particular, Gallinari and Herter were in the rotation ahead of Reddish. So I'll say Gallo and Herter as well.
Yeah, Atlanta's coming off of losing 6 of 7. I think they might have been trying to shake some stuff up, and they end up getting that Washington win. And I don't know. There's been some weird stuff around this team too, coming off of being a team that surprisingly made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Not as good as what you would expect them to be early in the season, but it's early as well. And maybe, for me, I think it would be Gallo would fit in for Hunter. I think it would be Kevin Herter that would fit in for Bogdanovich. So we obviously are waiting on that news. And I think I have enough Clippers pieces that I'm trying to get to in tournaments, whether it's Terrence Mann, whether it's Eric Bledsoe, whether it's Reggie Jackson. I'll be able to get myself to a little bit of these guys, but it really comes down to, the Philadelphia value just sticks out far and above away on this slate. So I'm not going to consciously make an effort the way that I normally would. Like if all things were equal, I would be definitely focused on this Atlanta game, this Atlanta team, especially considering it's 3-gamer, but not going to have to prioritize it the way I normally would because of how good that value is in the early spot. And you can still find your way to a little bit.
And one thing also, because I don't want to confuse people, I don't know why it's happened this year, but I think the Jazz and the Hawks have played on the same night on every single game so far this season. It is Bogdanovich that is questionable to play, not Bojan Bogdanovich, in case anybody's confused.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you for at least clarifying that. Yeah. Bogdanovich is who I'm alluding to. So, Bojan, no relation. Bogdan and Bogdan, same game, good times. All right. Anything else for you from the guard position?
Let's see. Who do I have exposure? And, also keep in mind, this is a slate. It's 3 games. There's a lot more, a lot wider of a net to cast in terms of playing shitty points per dollar plays that I wouldn't play on some bigger slates.
Fair.
Terrence Mann, I don't mind getting to either. Yep. He's somebody I'm currently a little bit overweight to the field on. Our most recent run of ownership, Terrence Mann is projected for 16% ownership on DK and 24% on FanDuel. 24% seems okay to me, but I'm a little bit over 20% on DK, which is about 50% more than what the field has. So we've seen some upside from Terrence Mann this year as well. His last game in particular, he scored 36 fantasy points. And I think we have to look back at the playoffs last year and how Ty Lue ran his rotations, which was whenever the team was struggling, he would make a change. If the change worked, he would stick with it. And the number one guy that applied to was Terrence Mann in the playoffs, because that was what the Clippers did to really work out a hole against the Jazz. Was they said, hey, we don't have Kawhi right now. And they really put Terrence Mann into a bigger role. And after struggling a little bit earlier in the year, and Terrence Mann not really playing all that much, last 4 games, 32 minutes, 31 minutes, 34 minutes. His price has gone up a little bit, but not all that much. And it looks to me like he's somebody we could pretty reliably count on for around 30 minutes now.
All right, we got the starting lineup. I'm just going to say I win. Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Mr. Reed, and Andre Drummond. Right. So I don't have to change anything because I had Reed starting the whole time. So that's fun. How about yourself? What does that starting lineup do for you?
Not much. I'll give a couple less minutes to Shake Milton, a couple more minutes to Paul Reed, and that'll change their ownerships a little bit. But I mean, I still think that we have to Milton...
Danny Green's not starting. Is the major takeaway from it? Yeah.
All right. I assumed that it was. Milton not starting, but now that we know that Milton's starting as well. Do you think Danny Green's going to be DNP potentially?
I think he might not play, is my impression. So this happened with Korkmaz the other day, and everybody said, hey, I don't think Korkmaz will play. The one differentiating piece, Danny Green's been in the NBA forever. Came out of North Carolina. He's been to Toronto. He's been to San Antonio. He's been everywhere. Lakers, whatever you want to go on and on. I got to be thinking that he's probably the guy that maybe plays a couple of limited time on a back-to-back. They're like, hey, we can't just make you inactive. We can't have you just sit. So warm up. If we need to play you for 18, 20 minutes, maybe we do. But I don't think I'm going to have any Danny Green exposure now.
No, I'm going to give him I don't actually think this is the amount of minutes he's going to play, but I'll give him 16 minutes just from a standpoint of, all right, he's in the rotation, which I don't necessarily think is the most likely situation, but I don't want it to be a case either where I'm giving Paul Reed 30 plus minutes and he ends up in all my lineups. So I'm going to have Danny Green there as a placeholder, but give him the kind of minutes where I'm not going to get to him at all.
I'm going to get to a lot of Paul Reed. I'm just going to tweak that for the Danny Green news. Yeah, I'm going to get to a ton of Paul Reed. And 28 minutes before lock, I still think Paul Reed's ownership will get there. And my big thing for him is that on this slate, you just talked about being starved for value. And Simons was a guy that I was kind of going to talk about to round out the guard position. But I don't think we need to even do that. I'm going to just be playing a lot more Paul Reed in the early slot and hope that his ownership doesn't get to like 35, 40%. I'm going to actually be paying attention to the boom bust tool. That's going to be a big part of the process here coming closer to lock, simply because it'll tell me kind of the break point where you don't want to be playing Paul Reed, but I'm playing him for an irrational amount of minutes right now, mainly because the other three active bodies there, they don't want to be playing so much. Danny Green coming off of injury and then being active. And now it looks as though they're going to give him a night off, but could go in there for 18 minutes, 16 minutes, as you said as well. 30 minutes that he played last night. It seems a little fishy to me. Seems a little fishy. He's going to be the one guy I'm happy to hit eject on. And I'm just going to get to a crazy amount of Paul Reed.
All right, so let's work through a scenario where Danny Green plays 0 minutes, because I don't think it's the most likely scenario necessarily, but I definitely think it's on the table. Do any of these guys now become worthwhile fires for you? Whether it's, the guys at the end of the bench, like Aaron Henry, Jaden Springer, Charles Bassey, do any of them cause any movement for you?
Well, here's the real interesting thing, and we got to talk foul trouble. What happens if Drummond or Paul Reed gets in foul trouble? Because then it's got to be Charles Bassey, right? Like if Paul Reed's going to be in the starting lineup here, Danny Green, even if he were to come off the bench, play a little bit. Aaron Henry was already a guy that I think I had slotted to play 8 minutes. I'm probably going to give Aaron Henry more run at 3K too. He would be the next piece that I'm looking at. I can't even believe that I'm saying that. Jaden Springer could be a guy who breaks into the rotation. Jaden Springer, I need to look at some preseason numbers on him. I'm going to pull that up here quick because I'm not familiar with him.
Yeah, so Jaden Springer in the preseason. Also, by the way, he has played 2 minutes this year. He has yet to score fantasy points. That's very poor points minute production, but only 2 minutes, like I was saying.
0.
By the way, his preseason production was shit. So he played 13 and a half minutes per game in the preseason, 6.25 DraftKings points. Only 4 games. Not what you like to see, though. He averaged 2.5 points per game in the preseason in 13 and a half minutes.
Jaden Springer, not Jerry Springer, although that would be hilarious. That would make for great content for sure. I'm not going to be going to him. I think Aaron Henry would be the guy that I'm going to have to give some minutes to in the event that they really do go to the end of this bench and make it work. Aaron Henry, had him in for 6 minutes. We had him for 5.5. That's going to change. Aaron Henry is going to get projected for some minutes here. Played 21 and 20 there in the last 2 preseason games. Also not very 20 and a half fantasy points that last preseason game. He played 2 minutes on the 20th as well. So looking at that, not intriguing options. I mean, they can play a lot of Niang. I mean, that's maybe the right guy that we should be talking about right now. Gorgie Jang right now, or Gorgie Niang, George Niang. There we go. I always have Gorgie Jang because I'm a Timberwolves fan, and he used to play forever at Louisville. And then George Niang went to my alma mater, Iowa State, and I love the man. But every time my brain switches them when I read it off the paper. But now I can say George Niang when I'm not looking at it. But there you go. Let's talk him because I think he's the guy that I might want to give a massive bump in minutes to. 4,700. We had him for 27.75 here at Awesemo. If you put him for over 30, 32 minutes, I mean, he's definitely going to be shooting dependent. That's kind of his MO, but I'm happy to get to more than the field on 17.9% right now.
Yeah, I have more than that in the most recent run I did. And like you said, also, it's not like he's projected to be all that popular. If you're looking for a Sixers player that has some sort of upside that isn't going to be massively popular for a cheap price outside of just the garbage plays at the end of the bench, because those are just dart throws. Niang is somebody at 4,700. His recent games, we've seen him score as many as, let's see, what are some of his big games recently? There was games where he shot really well from the field and scored, maybe not that much. Either one game where he scored 37 DraftKings points, but other recent games, 16, 19, 28, 27.
And he was 3,200 for that game too. So don't like for 3,200 on DK in that absolute offensive outburst. But he's got to play minutes. We have to be giving these guys so many minutes here. I mean, Paul Reed is popping up in just about everything that I'm doing in my last runs. I'm almost just forcing myself to get to more Niang because I don't want to be playing 80, 90% Paul Reed. I'm happy to get to a tiny bit less than that. That just seems a little bit extreme to me. I still want to play Bobby Portis, Andre Drummond, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I can't just be using all the power forward center spots in the world on Paul Reed on DraftKings. I think that that's a little negative. That's just not asking for good times, I don't think. So I'm going to get to a little Niang just to try to get a little bit different there. And then Shake Milton, I'm giving a crazy amount of minutes to, especially now that he's officially starting. I mean, this is just one heck of a slate we have here, Greg Ehrenberg.
You know what's kind of nice about all this Sixers value, though, is we do have Giannis on the other side of the game as a pay-up option. I get everybody's already playing him anyway, but there's so much correlation there now. And this is one of those classic shitty value type slates where the game where everybody's chalk goes to overtime.
God.
We get a good like 116 score at the end of regulation between the Bucks and the 76ers.
All right. We just got the update on everything here. And Bucks starting lineup here as well, just to read it off. Holiday, Hill, Allen, Giannis, Portis. Nothing surprising there. Exactly kind of what we were expecting. Fire up all the Bobby Portis in the world. I got a couple of housekeeping items. We are 22 minutes from lock, but obviously, even on this 3-gamer, we just had so much value, so many things that popped up. First thing, we've got Jock Market coming up after the show here. We'll talk about them here in a second as well. We have a whole 30 minutes dedicated to them. Can't wait to talk you guys through a little bit of that. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be reacting to all the news, to all the ownership that we have right after lock for DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, wherever you guys want to be looking. We're going to cover some of the ownership as soon as we get done. But Jock Market is the spot you want to go if you want to play fantasy sports live. If you want to be able to react to your analysis as the game's going on, Jock Market is the best place to do it. They've turned fantasy sports into the stock exchange where you can make money every minute, every second, every hour of every single sport. That's NBA. That's going to be MLB when it's back. NHL going still right now. They've got some great content for that. NFL, of course. You want to be buying and selling shares of these players in real time for the real money, and use promo code Awesemo for 100% match up to $50. That's money put directly into your account to be able to utilize immediately. So what you're going to do is you go over, you buy, sell, trade, you do all the things that you would normally do on a stock exchange, but there's a pregame IPO phase where you can pick up shares of players that you value the highest. We have projections for those up on the site. You can check those out, with your Awesemo Plus package. Just click on the Jock Market tab on the projections page, and you'll have the opportunity to bid, to trade, to win money based on the projections, based on your analysis. If somebody gets hurt, if somebody gets into foul trouble, you will be at an advantage because you're the one who's paying attention, and you'll be able to capitalize on it. So check it out. And their first market guarantee for the NFL, and I believe it's NBA now as well, will refund you for your first market that you join up to $100 of losses. So check out free Jock Market IPO projections that we have up on the site, and stop guessing, start winning here with Awesemo Plus, and stay around for the Jock Market show. We're going to be talking a lot about them. Thank you so much to their sponsorship. All right. Sorry that I'm doing a little bit out of order here, Jordan Klein, but we definitely needed to touch on this. I'm letting you get everything updated with your lineups. Are you noticing anything crazy here with some of the Sixers value? Because my God, I have an eternal amount of them.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot of them. And I mean, guys like Drummond, I was already going to be getting to a lot of Furkan Korkmaz, Shake Milton, Paul Reed, Niang. I'm overweight to right now, although not necessarily crazy overweight because he is pretty shooting dependent. Who is your most roster Sixers player outside of Drummond? It is Shake Milton for me.
It is Furkan Korkmaz for me on DK right now. 4,900 for him. Shake Milton. Well, here, okay, check this out. I'm getting 92% Andre Drummond, 86% Furkan Korkmaz, 85% Shake Milton. I'm probably going to have to tone down a little bit on each of these guys simply because also I have lineups, and I didn't think this was going to be something, but I truly think it's viable on this slate. I'm just going to throw it out there. Can you play 5 Sixers in a lineup tonight?
Yes.
I'm getting 5 Sixers in a lot of lineups. I've never had this before.
My highest projected lineup has 5 Sixers in it.
I think you should be playing 4 or 5 Sixers in cash tonight.
Let me see. I'm curious how many. I'm not going to play this many, but I'm curious to see. All right. So I'm scrolling through my lineups right now. Mm-hmm. I have My 15th highest projected lineup has 6 Philadelphia 76ers in it.
Jesus. Somebody asked a question. So we got a super chat just now, and I think that this is very applicable because I'm thinking about setting up a group on this where if I get 5 Sixers, I'm guaranteed I'm probably going to get a Bucks run back anyway. Like that's something that I'm probably going to get because of how much Giannis Antetokounmpo I have the availability to get. Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, I think all of them make for really strong plays here. But Darren Anderson asked, what rules are you setting up for 76ers players? I generally don't set up that many rules in NBA, usually cap it out at 3 players per team. And that's kind of the situation. I'll generally group it and make sure I don't get the backup center to a center. I'll make a rule for that. And that's generally where I'm starting at. I'll do like little boosts here and there of certain players that I get that I boost on the other side of a game. But Greg, anything you're setting up in particular for the Sixers news?
I'm just making sure that I get, so in general, I wouldn't want to get like 5 players from the same team, but it's a 3-game slate. And a lot of these guys are cheap enough where it's not unreasonable to think a bunch of them pay off their price tags. And especially because a lot of them are going to be contributing in different ways. Andre Drummond is going to get all of the rebounds tonight. There's nobody else going to grab a rebound for the Philadelphia 76ers. Paul Reed is really cheap. Then you got guys like Korkmaz, Milton, Maxey that I think have a pretty good chance to spread the usage, and a couple of them have pretty big scoring nights. So I think Drummond, because he's going to score his fantasy points independent of everybody else. Paul Reed, because he's so cheap. And then it wouldn't be shocking to see 2 or 3 other players on the Sixers go out and have a ceiling game. So I wouldn't play more than 5 76ers the same lineup on DraftKings. And FanDuel, by the way, 4. I have no problem playing 4 76ers on FanDuel. 4 is the max there. But yeah, I wouldn't go more than 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to 6. I'm just saying that I legitimately, obviously FanDuel, you don't have that problem. I'm probably going to get 3 or 4 Sixers in every single lineup. I think I already would be. If they could let me roster 5, that'd be great, but they're not going to. So we're going to be playing 4 Sixers in most lineups over on FanDuel here as well. Finishing up everything over there. It is what it is. That's the kind of slate that you've got here now. And, it's almost making sure that you get to a little bit more of the guys like Maxey, who are already going to be playing big minutes, who might have their spots taken up a little bit more now. I'm making sure that I aggressively get a little bit more Maxey because I expect in the aftermath of this, Shake Milton to be extremely popular. He's cheaper. So I want to try to make sure I manually boost a little bit more Tyrese Maxey and get him as well. We have a Soul Dope 1234 staple here of the Live Before Lock show. Appreciate you as always. He said on FanDuel, Reggie Niang or Maxi Gallinari. Gallinari is only a play for me, period. If you get one of or both of those guys out, where specifically DeAndre Hunter, I think you would probably start for. But who's your favorite in that 2v2?
Well, I'll say this. To me, Gallo has to start to be viable. Right. Even if those guys are like, there's a chance they go start like Solomon Hill or something goofy like that. So
don't say that.
You absolutely need, and I would have no interest in Solomon Hill if he's starting, but you need Gallinari to start to be viable. If not, the answer is not Gallinari.
All right. Yeah. The answer is probably not Gallinari either way, but I will have a little bit and try to make sure that I manually get to a little bit in the event you get that news if it breaks that way. So we better slam the Sixers Bucks game over, huh? I don't even know about that. I'm not even thinking about it in sports betting terms. I'm simply thinking about this as Korkmaz, Paul Reed, Andre Drummond, Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey. Please go off because you're my 5 highest owned players now on this slate. Yeah, but fun day that we have incoming. If that game is an absolute dud, somebody is going to win an eternal amount of money. If you just faded, it's impossible. It's impossible. This is not the way basketball works. I find it impossible that you're not going to get 2 or 3, like 7, 8x performances minimum out of the Sixers.
Yeah, and by the way, have you looked at the latest run of ownership?
I just refreshed here because I pasted all my dummy lineups in, and then I'm going to go back. Why don't you enlighten me here as I'm finishing up?
All right. So we have actually. I'll ask you. Here's a question. I'm just going to ask you this as you update because I think you could just answer this as you're kind of putting stuff in. Who do you guess is the highest owned player that is not a Sixer or a Buck today?
Well, Sixer or Bucks. I mean, Giannis gone, Porter's gone. I'll go CJ McCollum.
It is CJ McCollum. I feel like you cheated, but
I literally looked up at the sky. I'm literally putting this in. CJ McCollum was 7,200. I think because Maxey and Milton were already important pieces that guard made the most sense to guess. So what would be a really tough guess is what the next player would be, because I have no idea who the next most popular player that wasn't a Sixer or a Buck would be.
Paul George. That's not that's not that unreasonable. And then you go after that, it's Drew Holiday, Tyrese Maxey, then Reggie Jackson. So it is a lot of Clippers, a lot of Bucks, a lot of 76ers. The ownership on Paul Reed, I'm going to ask you, Eric, as you update your lineups. Do you feel any differently about Paul Reed knowing that he's now projected for 54% ownership on DraftKings?
Shit. I hate this. This is so dumb. God, here's the thing, is that I said Paul Reed was going to start all day, and now I don't get to have the benefits of it. And I'm upset, Greg Ehrenberg. I'm mad, and my voice is going into another vocal range.
Yeah, you became Mickey Mouse because you're so outraged.
Oh boy,
that everybody's rostering Paul Reed.
I hate NBA DFS. Oh,
that's Eric. That's Puppet Eric. That Chris Spags.
Oh, Puppet Lindquist, rip. Hey, I hope you're enjoying. If Spags is watching, a shout out to Spags. Why don't you get in the chat if you're watching? Just to say hi to everybody. Let us know how much you're enjoying Philadelphia and legalized sports betting, which, of course, OddsShopper can be a big part of here. We're going to be talking more about them in the days and months leading up. Well, no, just days. Like, we have OddsShopper firing on all cylinders. We were going to be doing a big fun thing. It's actually a fortuitous event that we moved that to Thursday for our little scavenger hunt, because first of all, I won't be able to host it. And I was probably going to be so annoying. I was going to wear a suit and be very excited about it and whatever else. But now I don't have to go back on that idea. But secondly, having the ability to go to OddsShopper and utilize all of the great tools and content that we have there for NFL and NBA, it's going to be a big money-making opportunity. But that's completely free to use. Something that you have to still pay to get behind the paywall right now is Awesemo Plus tools and content for NFL, for NBA, for MMA, for PGA, all of that. A weekly pass is $29.95. We have player projections. We have ownership projections. We have premium Discord. We got Loco in there updating news constantly for you guys so that it's hitting your phone. So when you're 11 minutes before lock, like we are right now, you know all of the lineups, you know all the updated information. And if you're a new user of Awesemo Plus Platinum, you have the opportunity to use NBA live before lock, the promo code there, 25% off your first week for everything we offer behind the paywall. That's NBA live before lock, all caps, one word, for that first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum, 25% off, and a weekly package right now, $16.95. It's not that much more. It's like $3 is the difference. I would be firing that up for sure. So stop guessing, start winning, and join Awesemo Plus today. All right, Caleb McLean, my guy, thank you so much. Yahoo, 67-person contest. So Yahoo, we're going to be talking a little Yahoo. We absolutely love Yahoo here on this show as well. He's saying Lillard or Trey. I'm going to be going Lillard pretty much around the industry over Trey. How about yourself?
Yeah, I have Lillard projected for more fantasy points. And I know that Trae Young had a fairly decent game yesterday against the Golden State Warriors, but even so, he finishes that game with 47 fantasy points. And his scoring has taken a little bit of a hit this year due to the change in free throw rules. He's drawing a lot less fouls this year. He's going to the line less. So in terms of fantasy production, his ceiling this year has been 53.5 fantasy points. He's only scored over 50 fantasy points twice the entire season. There's so many high upside plays on the slate. And just to me, Trae Young, well, he has had a ceiling in the past. We haven't seen it so far this year. So, I mean, not that we've seen it from Damian Lillard either, but I still do think that Damian Lillard is overall a better player and better fantasy player than Trae Young.
All right, we're 10 minutes before lock. Everybody smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. You know, those are the only ways that I can feel fulfilled here before I go get married, before I go sell my soul to the devil. I mean, no, I would never say something like that. Hopefully she didn't hear that. That'd be great. But yes, definitely hit that like button for us. Goes a long way. 9 minutes now here before lock. We've got another super chat. Super chat's coming in constantly here today, guys. Thank you so much. Taylor, me, LD. Are we sure Korkmaz is the best play of the 5K forwards on DK? Yeah.
I mean, who are you even comparing him to?
I think it was just a generalization. I mean, I don't know any other forward that's going to play 37.5 minutes and we project for 32. I think Norman Powell is like the comp, 5,200 for him. And can he go for a ceiling game? Absolutely. But like, we're talking medium projections. I don't know how you get close to Furkan Korkmaz at the forward position.
I mean, I've Bobby Portis projected for more fantasy points.
Okay, I love Bobby Portis too. So I mean, that's kind of a moot point. Like they're both just smash plays. But yeah, we're just sure of the 5K forwards on DK. Yeah, I guess put him in the forward bucket for sure.
Yeah, so for me, it's Bobby Portis, but I think both of them are really strong plays. But if I had to say who is the absolute number one, it's Portis.
Okay, love that. Oh man, I'm getting a lot of Damian Lillard now, like a lot more than what I was anticipating getting of Damian Lillard as well. This whole slate is just going to be bonkers. Looking forward to it here. All right, we got to talk centers to round this out. We got 8 minutes before lock, and then we're going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped now because it's bad boys for life. Greg and Eric taking you guys up to lock. Oh, Jordan wasn't even there to react to that. Are you kidding me? All of that set up, and I didn't even a Jordan Klein laugh. He's gone.
Yeah, he probably went to go make more music or to. Who knows what that guy does in the bathroom? He's going to come back with no pants on.
There he is. He just rushed back. He's like, thank you. I was proud of that one personally. But yes, let's round it out with the center position. Andre Drummond. He seems important. How much are you getting to him on both sides today?
Yeah, he's still the best play on the slate. And even more so now that we've gotten all this other value, he's come down in projected ownership. We only, once again, used in relative terms, project for 51% ownership on DraftKings, 55% on FanDuel. He was, at least in our last run of ownership in the Boom Bust Tool, the most under-owned player on the entire slate. And yeah, it's still the case. We have him popping up in the optimal lineup 60% of the time on DraftKings, a little over 60% of the time on FanDuel. So yeah, I still really like to get to Andre Drummond at center, and that does kind of limit the other options that I'm getting to at center because Drummond's in basically everything for me.
Yep, same here. I mean, Paul Reed getting added to the fray is another guy at power forward center. We already wanted to be paying up for Giannis, so he ends up being a guy that you have to almost like give a little bit of a boost to just to make sure you get more at this point, because that's just, another position to kind of fill in there. But Bobby Portis, him, all the Sixer value. I mean, I'm just not getting away from it at all. Why is Bledsoe coming up so much for me now? That is a mistake.
It's
I know.
Purpose.
I know. It's especially on a show with you now. It's like, I know that Eric Bledsoe 4,300 is going to just be the differentiating piece, and I'm going to lower his projection here as he finishes. All right, I can manage with 20% of him. I can just kind of move on from that. But the rest of the center position, we got Rudy Gobert. We have Nurk. So I just talked about Damian Lillard going Super Saiyan there on the top in 3/4 of work. Nurkic really did work against the Lakers there. 22 minutes, 46.25 fantasy points, well over 2 points per minute over on DK there for that game, but has been traditionally down. The minutes have been down, but you're trying to get different. I mean, is there somebody you're trying to get different with at center whatsoever?
I mentioned Clint Capella before, but once again, that's a really low priority play. The other thing also is so many of these guys that are really strong plays, they have a lot of ownership and it's justified. And it's on FanDuel, at least, Andre Drummond can only play one center, but then other guys on DK, at least Giannis is center eligibility, Drummond is center eligibility, Bobby Portis is center eligibility, Paul Reed has center eligibility on DraftKings, which is really weird. I don't know why Paul Reed is center eligible on DK, but that aside, a lot of these guys make it in my lineups as centers. There's nobody else I'm getting to in more than 5% of my lineups. Like I said before, I think Clint Capella is worth a flyer if you're playing a bunch of lineups. Nurkic, I think, kind of in a similar boat to Capella, but if you're somebody who only plays 1, 3, 5, 10 lineups, I don't think you really need to consider anybody outside of Paul Reed, Bobby Portis, Andre Drummond, and Giannis at center.
Agreed. That's kind of the trio. I mean, Zubats is like, if you want to get just different, but I don't know why you want to get that different. I either am going to pay up for the ceiling or I'm just going to play 100% Drummond. There's really no in between, and I'm leaning more. I've got 90% Drummond on DK right now. They've been around 90, 92% in every run that I've had. I'm going to finalize these lineups, and that is what I'm rolling with. We are 5 minutes before lock, everybody. Start getting your lineups in and then stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're going to live react to some ownership, and my God, it could be nuts. We'll talk the big tournaments on DraftKings, the big tournaments on FanDuel, get some live reactions to what should be a really interesting Sixers game to be live sweating live. So you're going to want to be kicking it with us. And of course, we'll be talking some Jock Market. Hopefully we can make some money as that Sixers game is going on, because there are going to be some fascinating ins and outs of being able to find shares of players live as we're going there. All right. I'm finalized everything. I'm done. I'm ready to rock. Who are your highest owned players here of the day, Greg, on both DraftKings and FanDuel?
Nothing that's going to surprise anybody. A lot of Sixers guys, a lot of Bucks guys, Giannis, Portis, Korkmaz, Paul Reed, Shake Milton, Andre Drummond. Paul George, I like as a pay up option. There's nobody who's like massively contrarian that I'm getting a whole bunch of exposure to. So I guess I'm going to be riding with the chalk today. And then, maybe I have a lineup here or there with like Mike Conley or a lineup with Nurkic or Capella that ends up differentiating a little bit. But I've got a lot of exposure to the popular guys. Are you still updating your lineups? Or are you?
Well, I had one more update that came in. I thought I would update my FanDuel stuff one more time for the heck of it.
I'll answer. Rabashua in our premium Discord chat asked us, what percentage of the time does Nurkic beat Drummond? I don't know. I don't have like a real statistic mathematical answer. I will say that we have in the boom bust tool, Nurkic landing the optimal lineup 6% of the time on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he lands in the optimal lineup 8% of the time. So, and then we've got Drummond in 60% of the time. I don't know. I'd say probably like 25% of the time is a reasonable guess that Nurkic scores more fantasy points than Drummond. What would you guess? How often do you play this slate out that Nurkic outscores Andre Drummond from just fantasy points perspective?
I think it's a little bit lower. It's really close. And even like thinking about that question makes you like question how much Drummond you have to a certain extent, but we're playing the slate out once. You do want to think about it as in like 100 times we played out. I would say you'd beat him 20% of the time. Yeah, I think that's about the right number. I think you were pretty spot on with that. That sounds about appropriate to me. And as you were saying, looking at the boom bust tool, I mean, Andre Drummond, he has a 69.7% chance of booming with 55% ownership over there, and he's optimal 61% of the time. On DK, 60% boom score, 51% ownership, nearly 60% optimal. You're getting positive leverage by locking in Drummond today, so I think I'm just going to do that and just not try to get cute.
Yep, I have no issue with that whatsoever. He is my most rostered player today, and once again, in terms of Nurkic, I would only be considering him once you're playing more than 20 lineups, and it would still be a small amount of exposure to Nurkic. And even considering the high ownership on Drummond and the low ownership on Nurkic, we still have Nurkic barely going under owned in our boom bust tool. We have him with 1.1% of leverage on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's actually one of the more negatively leveraged players on the slate, 10% ownership, 6.3% chance of landing the optimal lineup. So it's not like it's all that likely that we're going to see him land in an optimal type lineup. So it's a low percentage chance that he outscores Drummond.
All right, Steve Bernini, do you like a Conley pivot off of Holiday at half the ownership and GPPs on DK? I don't really like Mike Conley, period, on this slate whatsoever. You have Tyrese Maxey, you have Shake Milton, you have 40 plus minutes of those dudes, as opposed to Mike Conley, who has eclipsed 32 minutes one time. It was the last game. They played 32 minutes against Miami there in that loss. Do you have any interest in Mike Conley on this slate?
Yeah, I have some exposure to Mike Conley. I never have an issue taking a point guard going up against Trae Young. Also, it's the tail end of a back-to-back for Atlanta. Mike Conley rested last game. So I think there's a pretty good, reasonable chance that we see over 30 minutes from Mike Conley, and he should score over a fantasy point per minute in this matchup. So I have Conley projected for 33 fantasy points. Makes him, it puts him in play for me.
Yeah, I'm much lower on Paul George, and I think that is kind of landing me on a lot of Damian Lillard. If I want to get on some Paul George, again, he's projected for 50 plus, but in order to get a little bit different, I just played a lot more Giannis in order to have him paired with a lot of the Sixers plays so that they're at least positively correlated here. You got to be hoping for a little bit of that. And then for me, I'm just taking my aggressive stand on Damian Lillard. That's kind of what my slate is going to be built on, but we are officially at lock. It is Jock Market o'clock. But before we get to all of the great stuff that they have over there, I want to live react to a lot of this ownership because it's going to be fascinating. I'm pulling up the $10 at the pull up jumper over here on DK. I will also pull up the $5 over here over on FanDuel. I think that these are going to be fascinating things to go through. Greg, before you look at anything, I want you to guess. I want you to guess Andre Drummond's ownership on DK and the $10.
I mean, we had him projected for, was it 52%? There's a chance maybe it was a little low. I'll say 60.
That's a great guess. 62.8%. So a little bit higher, but still with the boom score where it is, I have no problem with that. That's not going to be an issue. Furkan Korkmaz.
50.
55.2%. Shake Milton.
We had 38.
Shake Milton is 43.9%.
Okay.
Tyrese Maxey.
I think so we already had all that ownership going to Korkmaz and Milton.
Yep.
I don't think people are going to be making lineups, and I don't think there's going to be that many lineups with 6 players, and so the ownership has to be cut somewhere. So it's probably going to be a little bit lower on guys like Niang and Maxey than we had originally thought. So on 28% for Maxey.
30.7%. Pretty sharp by you. And now to the guy I have 100% of in 40 lineups, Paul Reed.
I think Paul Reed's going to be super popular today. I'll say 60% for Paul Reed.
32.6%.
Oh, wow. That is very surprising.
That's the one I was waiting for. Let's go. You shaking your head over there, Jordan Klein. You don't like Paul Reed? You don't believe in Paul Reed tonight? It's Paul Reed season. You didn't hear? It's Paul Reed season. It's absolutely Paul Reed season. Greg, those were really sharp takes, but just like you, Paul Reed was the one I wanted to save for last because I think he is fascinating to be looking at that number. I'm excited to be locked in on that guy over on DK. I don't have the 100% over on FanDuel, but in order to go really stars and scrubsy, to have Giannis, to have a lot of Damian Lillard, and I'll be able to pivot on some Paul George if need be here for sure. I just played a boatload of Paul Reed, and I'm happy with that. So I hope you guys are excited for that. That's the $10. Those are kind of the main pieces. Oh, Niang. Gorgie Niang. And also, oh shit, we just got DeAndre Hunter ruled out as soon as we start this show. Are you kidding me?
Right. But did they, let's see. So
Bogdanovich, a game time decision. And we got the DeAndre Hunter news, which is fascinating after you lock in all of these pieces of value. But DeAndre Hunter, I expect Gallinari to start. And again, Gallinari on the season has not played more than 23 minutes in a game period. That's why I just kind of felt more comfortable, even knowing that he was going to be, drastically lower owned here in this spot comparatively if we had that news before lock. I'm still just not going to probably get to him because I wanted to play all the Paul Reed. I think the minutes are just so much more secure. I'm especially happy seeing that he's not 50% plus like we were projecting, which I think was probably the right way of looking at it. I would have guessed him 55% at that number. To get him at 32.6%, by the way, he just had the first bucket of the game. Let's go. Paul Reed season is in effect. Okay.
Jordan's already regretting it. He knows the slate is over. Yeah, he knows it.
Oh, he's tilting. I get Jordan Klein tilt cast. Let's go. This is the greatest thing ever.
Assisted by Milton, blocked by Drummond. Oh my God, we're gonna be in first in everything for the next hour.
Oh man, it's gonna be incredible. Also,
by the way, on the Atlanta thing, I'm not gonna be updating any of my lineups until we get news on bot. Like, there's no reason to. There's no other game that starts until that game happens. So we could talk about the significance of this news, obviously. Yes. But it's kind of silly to update lineups because regardless of what happens, because whatever happens with Bogdanovich, there's no other game that starts until then. We might find out, you might update all your lineups, and then Bogdanovich gets ruled out, and then you have to re-update everything. So for me right now, I'm not going to really be changing anything, nor do I think that only one of them being out opens up all that much value anyway. We really needed both of them to be out, in my opinion.
Andre Drummond, 66.6%. I don't like looking at that number. That's scary. That's the devil's. That's the devil. Name that movie, Greg.
I have zero clue.
The Water Boy. Come on now. Yeah, Jordan Klein, he mouthed it. Look at it. He knew. Devil. It's when the mom's like sleeping. She always says, he's the devil.
All right. I didn't realize that you were impersonating a lady that time. I was thinking of, I don't even know what I was thinking.
I'm a man of many talents, Greg Ehrenberg. One of them is talking about Jock Market here live and finding great segues like the one I just had. As I was talking about before, Jock Market is going to be what we're talking about here. And of course, we're going to be live looking at the games. We just got all this great news, but we got the projections up on the screen here. We have the break-even points for all these players. They're fair values. These projections are available on Awesemo.com as well. Take advantage of them right now. There's really no better spot than Awesemo.com in order to give you an edge, not just at every single like DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, but Jock Market even. We have projections. We have fair IPO prices for these players. Giannis Antetokounmpo blowing this slate away in terms of projection. Remember, you get minus 0.5 points over on Jock Market. So we want to keep that in mind as we're looking at the board. But as I'm pulling it up here on my phone, it's such an easy app to be using, such a clean interface, so easy to be able to look at NFL contests, NBA, PGA is a blast to play over there, NHL as well. I think you'll all really, really enjoy it. But we're going to click on NBA and go to the daily market and see Giannis right now is at $18.85 for an ask price. His fair IPO price is $20.70. You could still get some Giannis Antetokounmpo in your life and be in a really good spot. What do you think about him right off the bat?
All right. So I'm pulling up and seeing what some of the ask prices are. And then I'll go over to our projections as well. So his current ask is, what's weird? I don't know if you just brought that up before, because I was quickly moving over to bring up the numbers. The asking price for Andre Drummond is almost the exact same as it is for Giannis right now.
Oh my God, it is $18.23 for Drummond. He's $16.50 for a fair IPO. I would much rather go to Giannis.
Yes, and obviously Drummond has gotten off to a better fantasy start, so there is something to be said for that. It would have to be adjusted a little bit. We've got right now Andre Drummond has scored 5 more fantasy points than Giannis, so the gap between the two of them definitely gets narrowed a little bit. But with them being the same price, I would much rather place a bid on Giannis than Drummond.
Andre Drummond, offensive board, put back. Dude's got 4, 1, and 2. What? Right. What? Just a hero. Just hero ball early.
Maybe we prefer. Maybe we do prefer Drummond then.
Yeah, I was gonna say George Hill. How about him out of the gate here? We've got a foul on Paul Reed, foul on Korkmaz, foul on Milton. Those are the sweats. The sweats are the 2 fouls where Doc Rivers quick triggers and goes over to the bench and pulls off Danny Green, and he plays 30 minutes. I will not be excited about that. But Drummond already up to 10 over on DK. Looking at Jock Market, I have no qualms about it. Giannis Antetokounmpo over 2 from the field with 2 rebounds. I still like him more. $18.85. It would be ludicrous, asinine even, for me not to take Giannis still in this spot. So I'm going to be doing that. Paul George here, the next guy who's on the list, $17.30 fair asking price. $16.80 is the ask price right now. Might be somebody to get a share or two, kind of invest in the ceilings there. How are you feeling about Paul George on Jock Market tonight?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we have him projected. It's not there's that much value here, but we do have him being a little bit undervalued by the field right now. We have that fair asking price of fair IPO price of $17.30. Right now, he could be had for $16.80. So once again, it's a thin margin, but I think that does make him somebody of somewhat interest. One thing I will point out, though, is that we do have Paul George projected with a higher fair IPO price than Andre Drummond. Given the quick start for Andre Drummond, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that Paul George maybe should be projected for a little bit less of a fair IPO price if these were, live projections.
All right, I'm buying as many shares as I can of Paul Reed right now, 467 here. I'm going to get a ton of him. He's got 4 and 3 to start off this game. He's got a 467 ask price. That hasn't updated here for a while, and I know that he was like way down at the bottom last time that I looked at our projections. Let me take a look. What was Paul Reed? His fair ask price? It's going to be a little bit different because I know some of it gets updated a little bit differently. Let me find Reed here quick on the fair IPO sheet. Can you find him at all, Jordan? $6.70 is his fair IPO price. Paul Reed is going for $4.92. Buy as many shares of Paul Reed as you humanly possibly can right now.
Yeah, I don't have any kind of issue with that whatsoever. I'll place an order on Paul Reed and see if I get any.
I just got 2 shares. I get more. Here we go. Again, I'm able to just get it. Finding sellers. Oh, he just went up to 537 quick. Did I just get it?
I got 10 shares of Paul Reed.
Oh, you just sniped me is what you did, I think. Paul Reed is the best guy to get right now. 597. I would even pay 597 for him right now. Buy 6. Here we go. Buy. Again, I'm trying to get this in real time. I want it right now. Come on.
This is the most Eric's ever won anything. He's about to leave his soon-to-be wife for Paul Reed.
You know what? Worth it. Oh, wait, what? No, just kidding. I'm very excited. Order canceled. I need to get some more. All right. Paul Reed is the best guy you can possibly get in. If you want any reason right now, we're able to live react to something who is already a massive projection. By the way, Giannis board and then a bucket, 4-3 for him, 15-14, 6 minutes into this game. Maybe the dream start for me. Andre Drummond, Paul Reed going nuts. Maxey Milton Korkmaz all on the board. Fantastic start. Love to see how this is going to go here for sure. But I'm very excited for it. You should be all getting on right now and just getting as much Paul Reed as humanly possible. He's now up to $7. $7. I feel like I want to do live auctioneering. Yeah, no. I can't talk. I can't do an auctioneering voice. Jordan Klein didn't like that.
No, he didn't. Well, it was
nobody liked that.
No, they didn't like it as much as your Mickey Mouse voice, and even that one wasn't super popular. Yeah, that was.
I love Paul Reed.
Yeah, I don't know. YouTube chat isn't gonna like that whatsoever.
All right. Well, I hope you guys got some Paul Reed in your life. And right now, if you want to play along with us, use promo code Awesemo. Get that $50 for a 100% match up to that $50. So you deposit 50, you get 50, you put it on Paul Reed. That's a lot better than going into Vegas and putting it on red. I can tell you that right now, because Paul Reed, even at $7 right now, is going to smash that number. I absolutely love looking at that coming in here. That is somebody that you want to be invested in. Looking at his box score, there's nothing to even, it's just such a no-brainer. It's such a no-brainer right now to go in and invest on him. He's going to play a boatload of minutes. It's only going to go up from here. Famous last words, but I'm very excited about it, and you should be too. Let's look at some of the other pieces of this game, because again, we're able to play in real time on Jock Market. That's the best part about being over at Jock Market, is being able to have this live analysis. So we look at the projections, we make informed decisions, but we can also see that Paul Reed's in line for a big game compared to what his expectations are for what those projections are at. And you can just basically find a great investment. Is there somebody else that you see that could be a fantastic investment on Jock Market for you today?
We wanted to talk about players who have not yet started, or players who are mid-game.
Both. Because again, they're in a timeout right now, 15-14 in that game here. 76ers, they're going to call all their timeouts throughout this entire game. They're going to need some massive breaks if they're going to play 40 plus minutes for a lot of these guys, and Danny Green doesn't see the floor. That's really going to be the sweat of this first quarter, is whether or not Danny Green actually even sees the floor.
I mean, I'm assuming that Danny Green, I think it's probably more likely that he plays than doesn't play, but I'm certainly not assuming he plays a bunch of minutes.
Okay. Yeah, that's probably the right way of putting it. But I'm going through some of the top ends. I mean, for me, Giannis and Paul George and Andre Drummond are in their own tier. But then you've got a guy like Damian Lillard, who right now is $12.62. Right now, he's projected 9th on Jock Market. Part of that is he's a volume shooter. You get those negative 0.5s, and you're going to need him to just go completely nuts. Somebody said Drew Holiday truly busting. I mean, the game just started. You'll be okay.
You know what's funny is just some of the bias built into this is where Eric's already saying, "Oh, Paul Reed's going to crush today, no doubt about it." But then Drew Holiday off to the slow start, and that one doesn't matter. Paul Reed's start is where it's at, though.
Hang on, did you buy 10 shares as soon as I told you to? You did? Oh, okay, that's cool. I just made you money. That's nice.
I absolutely did. Yeah. Which, by the way,
you can send me a wedding present. It's fine. You can do it.
You could buy them for me for like $9 a share if you want.
That wasn't very nice.
I mean, you could.
Meanness.
The asking price is at $8.97 right now.
Somebody said, "Let me see how much Rubio is tomorrow." You know what? I don't mind looking ahead. Do they have it listed? No, they don't have it listed. Yeah, yes, they do. They do have the Jock Market. The pre-game IPO won't start for a while.
By the way, Danny Green just checked in for Shake Milton, so he will be in the rotation today.
Son of a biscuit. Well, Tyrese Maxey just made a bomb, assisted by Drummond. Thank you so much. Assisted by Drummond. That sounds like a great trademark. No, it doesn't. That's the stupidest thing I've ever said. All right. I'm looking at the rest of the board here. For today, I'm looking at the Jock Market here. I'm finding some other value. Again, that Paul Reed one was as good as it will get, period. I don't know if you'll have a better investment than that the entire rest of the way here, but we're going to try to find a couple of them here. I think on the top end, if one of the studs does fail out of this first one, you want to kind of be ready to go. But we just had Giannis bucket followed by Paul Reed bucket. Oh, it is Paul Reed season, people. I'm telling you right now, Jordan Klein's so unhappy right now. I've never seen Jordan Klein this unhappy. This makes me sad. I like it when you're happy and jovial.
Yeah, no, I like artistic Jordan when he's making music for us. Mm-hmm. But I also like I like Sad Jordan also because that's what inspires the music he makes for the intros.
Dude, this game is flying. 23-20, 4 minutes left to go. Maxi's starting to really, really go here. He's up to 9 points, 1 assist. He is, I'm very happy about that, Maxi. Just making sure that you boosted him a little bit over Milton, especially considering you're getting sub 40% there for one Tyrese Maxey. It could be a really very fun night here. There was no way around it. Yeah, again, I had 100% read. There was no way around it for me. Oh, another Tyrese Maxey bucket. Danny Green assist, 11 points, 1 assist, 25-20 76ers. I think that bodes really well for this game. So let's talk about this. Right now, Bobby Portis is on the bench. Bobby Portis is not going to be accumulating fantasy points here for another, I don't know, maybe he doesn't play the rest of this quarter. He's at $7.08. I think as soon as you see him enter the game, you want to have your finger on the trigger ready to go for Bobby Portis, because in the event that this game stays close, which if the 76ers are up 5 right now, I don't see how it doesn't. I feel pretty confident in saying that, you know, if the Milwaukee Bucks were up 5, I'd be more nervous about everybody's minutes, but I'd be ready to fire away on Bobby Portis. You know, he's right now projected 22nd to finish right now. He's got the kind of upside where if he gets involved here, he could go on a crazy burst and you won't be able to get him at $7.08.
Well, here's the thing, though. We have his fair IPO price only projected for $7.60. And then you consider that he's not off to, you know, the best of starts. Right. And maybe you say the fair price for him is somewhere in the neighborhood of $6.50, $7. So, yeah, I would need the asking price to be like $6 a share before I went in on Bobby Portis at this point.
Somebody named Boob just said, holy bad word, shut the bad word up. Eric, talk like a normal person. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to give you a little timeout. That sounds like fun. No, I can't even do it. You know, I can't even do it. You can keep talking shit to me. I really don't care. Keep on.
He was
going,
making good points, though.
He was making great points. I sound like a mutant Kermit. It's fine. I get it. Totally understood. Hasn't been the best year for old Kermit the Frog Mahomes. And you know what? My year also not as good. But here we go. Rest of the Jock Market. We've got Jordan Clarkson way down there. For me, let's talk about the Atlanta piece, because we haven't talked about DeAndre Hunter and some of the news of that. Another great thing about Jock Market is if you have an assumption that somebody like Cam Reddish, or you have notifications going to your phone and you see a guy like Cam Reddish is in the starting lineup, somebody who can generally perform pretty decently well in fantasy, or somebody that's just going to be a little bit over there, he's $3.86. But if somebody like that were to surprise start, a little bit more than Gallinari, who I would have almost no interest in either way on Jock Market, but whoever does end up getting that start, aside from him, I mean, is there somebody that you'd kind of be willing at their current ask price to be invested in? We've got Cam Reddish at $3.86. Of course, we're waiting on Bogdanovich news, which could make Trae Young a more appealing ceiling option, perhaps. But anybody that's sticking out to you from the Atlanta side?
You know, it's a pretty interesting way to look at it. And also, I mean, you can't really look at our fair IPO projections until we get that update on the Atlanta Hawks. But let's look through Kevin Huerter, 390. Let me just think off the... So we have fair IPO projection, $2.90 for Kevin Huerter. We have him projected for 12.71 fantasy points. So, yeah, maybe we say if Kevin Huerter ends up starting, we could double his projected minutes, and then his fair IPO price probably somewhere in the neighborhood of like $5.50. So I think Kevin Huerter, somebody who his current ask price is at $390. Yeah, $390. I would be willing to go in on Kevin Huerter if he ends up starting. That's something I would do pretty quickly.
I like that one a lot. That's a great call. I kind of just forgot about him in the back of my brain as I was talking through it. Great call by you there. I think that's definitely somebody to keep advantage of, or keep an eye on. And at $6.06, I wouldn't want to be investing in Bogdanovich at that number. I think in DFS, you could definitely rotate to a little bit of him to get different, a later piece there for sure. But for the most part, I'm going to be steering clear of the atmosphere that is surrounding Bogdanovich no matter what. But anybody else? Trae Young. Can you touch on Trae Young quick? Where would you kind of be looking? Because I think, let me pull up his Wowie here quick. I got to be thinking he'd be a main beneficiary. If you got Bogdanovich off the floor, that's definitely going to be a plus for some of his fantasy projection, no?
Let's see. What is his IPO price at? Because that's what is going to matter, is whether I want to bid on him relative to that price. Mm-hmm. You know, he's actually only at $13.05. We have a fair IPO price for him at $12.50. But like you said, tell me what those numbers look like. How much of a boost does he get when Bogdanovich is off the court? If it's a significant boost, then yes. If it's not, then it would be a no.
So I'm looking 34.1% usage with Bogdanovich off the floor, rebounding, looking total rebounding going to be, I mean, he's never a good rebounder as it is. So yeah, he's all the way down to just 6% rebounding. That's pretty a moot point, not a big deal to me. And DraftKings points per minute, 1.37 for Trae Young with Bogdanovich off the floor. With him on the floor, we're going to switch that. Give it 1 second here. And I've got for Trae Young, man, why is it taking so long here? 1.32. So he gets a 0.05 boost over the course of the last calendar year. When you get Bogdanovich off the floor, that's enough of a boost for me to be, somewhat moderate there. And from a usage perspective, 33.4. So only a 2% usage increase, but definitely a little bit of a production increase. So 0.05, you just basically say 20 minutes of that would be one fantasy point, but enough of a boost where it's not nothing.
Yeah, not enough for me to want to bid on him either. Because, I mean, you're looking at 0.05 over 36 minutes. So we're looking at what, like maybe two extra fantasy points for Trae Young, which, like you said, isn't nothing. But, I mean, we currently have a projected fair RPO price of $12.50. And his current asking price is $13.10. So that all seems about fair to me.
Paul Reed just checked back in the game. Paul Reed gets aboard 6-4. I mean, this guy is the GOAT of all GOATs. I hope you guys got in on that because that is going to be a smash on Jock Market for today. Very excited about it. But yeah, Trae Young, maybe not the biggest boost, not as big of a boost to get to that 1305 that we're looking at for the asking price right now. George Niang, hate reading his name off of the screen, but there you go. George Niang, deep bomb, another great spot to be looking at here. But looking forward to these Sixers all paying off. They're up 31-27. Ogilvy from deep. That's not something I expected. Is there anybody? So we haven't talked about the Portland Clippers game at all whatsoever. Part of it is that the Sixers value just kind of trumped a lot of it in DFS, but on Jock Market, is there maybe a play or two other than Paul George, who we know the kind of ceiling he can have, still at $16.80? Not the worst spot to maybe be investing in. That's the ask price, but anybody else that might stand out to you on Jock Market from that game?
Let's see. So we talked about Paul George already. Paul George, asking price up to $16.80 now. If we're looking at some of the other Clippers players, let's see, Reggie Jackson. Maybe is that somebody who could be of interest? About a fair IPO. We have a fair IPO price for Reggie Jackson projected at $8. The current asking price for Reggie Jackson is $8.07. So that's all fair. Terrence Mann looks like he's going to be fairly expensive from an IPO projection perspective. Same goes for Batum and Zubats. I don't really see a whole lot that looks good to me. Is there anybody I'm missing?
No, it looks pretty unappealing. Other than, I will say, being able to live watch, oh my God, Tyrese Maxey from deep, 14-2 for him. What a start. What a start for Tyrese Maxey. Could not be better for us here at the moment. But I think CJ McCollum and also just being able to react to him and Lillard, you can kind of watch those games live and see where the ball's kind of like one of them gets hot really, really early on, finding a ability to be invested there. Obviously, I'm taking the Lillard side, but he's going at $12.80 for an ask price. And CJ McCollum, 1094 here. Not somebody that is getting as much love there. He's cheaper on DFS sites. And if people are looking at that, where's CJ McCollum here now at the moment? 1085 was his IPO price, what it came in at. I think getting some CJ McCollum in your life, if he gets off to a decent enough start, is something you'll want to be doing. It's also 10 p.m. out there on the East Coast. Don't you guys go to bed around then?
No, not because I'm not a million years old, but I mean, it's the time zones don't work that differently. Like we go to bed the same time that you do. It just translates to a different time zone.
Yeah, I think that basically what I'm getting at is somebody might set that price and forget about it. Somebody might set the price for the evening games. And I've seen it happen on Jock Market a couple of times. Not so much lately here, but I know last year, especially on like a 13-game slate, which you got on tap for tomorrow, buckle up, everybody. Going to be a wild ride, I'm sure. As if today, even on a 3-gamer, it was insane. What's going on? 17-2. He just hit another 3. Did Tyrese Maxey hit another 3? Oh, yeah, sure enough, did. He has 13. Now Shake Milton's out there. This is going to be fun.
Maybe I shouldn't have capped the most Sixers in the same lineup at 5.
I think it might. You could be looking at 6. All I know is that I've never, and again, I always like to run crunches without putting any of a cap, like any kind of a cap. I couldn't believe how many 5 Sixers lineups I was getting. I've never seen anything like it. I think the closest comp, remember Golden State when they were projected for like 92 points a game early last year when they had, or was it, yeah, when Steph Curry was out. Maybe it was last year, 2 years ago. Steph Curry was out, and there were like 8 active Golden State Warriors every game, and you would just play like 4 of them a night, even like they were the worst team in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I don't remember a slate where there's been 6 players from the same team in an optimal lineup. And by the way, we're still very early in this game. Who knows what happens with value in the later games? But at least as of now, you would have to say Paul Reed, fairly likely to be optimal. Tyrese Maxey, fairly likely to be optimal. George Niang has, what is Niang's stat line?
2 threes I saw. He's at 6.5, so nothing crazy yet.
So Niang, nothing really too crazy. Shake Milton's played okay. Drummond also solid, but not great first quarter, although with that said, he's probably going to check in fairly early in the second quarter. But yeah, it's if I was to set the line for you over under 3.5 76ers in the first place lineup in the $10 on DraftKings, you going over or under that number?
That's a fantastic line because I think you named Maxey, you said Paul Reed, you said Drummond. I think all 3 are looking very likely. I will say over because I expect somebody else, whether that's Shake Milton, whether that's Furkan Korkmaz, whether that's George Niang. I think one of those 3 still has a pretty good chance. They're going to play so many minutes. There's 3 quarters. They're up 9 on Milwaukee right now. And even if they're up by 25, they're basically going to have the same guys on the floor late in the fourth quarter. Milwaukee won't. You're probably in trouble on the other side of that. But I expect Milwaukee to get themselves in a position to still win this game. And knowing that, these guys are all going to play 35 plus minutes now at this point. You have a 7-man rotation. No Curry. Henry's not going to enter the game. Bassey's not going to enter the game. Springer. Again, I put Henry in for like 6 minutes, 8 minutes. We were talking through that, and I just thought it was unnecessary. Once you got the starting lineup and Paul Reed was in there, he just became the guy that you jammed everywhere. And sure enough, it's coming to fruition. That's going to be a fun kind of a sweat here as we go. But I think 3.5 is a fantastic line. I'll still take the over. How about you?
I would like it to be I'll take the over and say 4. But I think three or 4 is probably it's close. I think.
Oh, look at Jordan Klein. He's looking out into the world. He's seeing all of his money floating down the drain.
He's contemplating his
Teddy KGB
after not playing Paul Reed today.
Yeah, it's like big strong man ready to take on the world. Little rounder.
The pot.
Whenever the crap I please. There you go, everybody. Hey, to round out Jock Market here right now, is Andre Drummond in consideration to be somebody you would invest in at $18.14? I'm thinking about buying a share on the way out.
No.
Okay, cool. Glad we had that talk. Giannis up to 1931. That's why I asked. Hey, everybody. This was a blast. It was fun reacting to this game in real time. This is what you're allowed to do on Jock Market. That's what makes it so fun. Make sure you get in on some of these pregame IPOs for NBA tomorrow. Is a massive slate. There is going to be value on Jock Market. Use promo code Awesemo. Get that $50 100% match deposit bonus. There's nothing better than being able to lock in some of these deposit bonuses from different sites, and specifically Jock Market, where it's so clean and so easy to be playing on your phone. You can do it in real time. So thank you so much to them for their sponsorship here of the Deeper Dive and of the Live Before Lock show. Greg, we're done here. Any final words for the people?
I remember when everybody regretted playing Bobby Portis 6 minutes ago, and now everybody's talking about if he's going to have a triple-double.
That's what I'm saying, baby. Bobby Portis in the house. Let's go. Hey, Greg Ehrenberg, he's the man. I'm Eric Lindquist. I'm going to be a married man. We'll see you later.